video. Well, they have an intro
Don't
video
do it.
feature.
We need to fix that until I can figure out the copyright issue.
Yeah, no, but I thought he
owns the license, but I don't know how that works for me. I'm still figuring it out with him.
Oh, okay. Oh wait. Oh man, I have to go live.
I'm zoozing
on Entropy. Okay, now I'm just putting the Entropy link will be in the. It's just really annoying to I
always try and set this up ahead of time.
Yeah, I should do that. I should just put the Entropy link ahead of time. But
this does not spark joy.
Yeah, I'm burdened by what has been. What?
Unless you're Barack Obama, and then the joy is totally gone.
What's the thing? What could be unburdened by what has been?
Unburdened by what? Or I don't know. Unburdened by what? I don't know it.
It's funny how they gave like.
I'm not Patrick Casey. I don't shut up and listen when a black woman is speaking.
It's not Leafs game. It's not. Oh my God! How is it 3-0 Blue Jackets? How? Blue Jackets are the bottom of the conference. Oh my God! The Leafs were excellent, flawless game against Florida last night, but it's only the first period.
And now
how
sports.
Is that? Oh my God, I can't believe this. This is incredible. But anyways, Sinwar, we have to talk about that. So anyways, yeah, this is Digital Archipelago 105. And what was I talking about before the Leafs choke?
Oh, we were talking about running a podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, like, okay, so apparently Tim Dimfool, I call him Tim Gruel. Apparently he's like going out of business.
I think he had said that was his last show last night, and that whoever his guest was an unpaid therapist for 2 hours to listen to this guy complain about how he hires like 30 employees, and that, it takes a lot of work, that he works effectively 16-hour days. And it's just, I think that this is just a severe management problem. I mean, AA was talking about this earlier today, and I couldn't help but laugh, because it's just like, oh, so this guy just has no business acumen. Which is funny to say that, because obviously you have to have some business acumen to start a show and to run it and to have the level of success that he does. So is it just like, are you unhappy that you feel burnt out and that you haven't hired competent people? It just seems like, oh, we're just going to complain for 2 hours and then take my toys home. Listen. And there are plenty of people who run podcasts for free. You'll be fine, Tim.
Yeah.
Just fire some people.
Like if Tim, like if Ethan Ralph can like do a show every week, then it's like,
you have no excuse.
What are you doing? I was gonna say Mikey Nack, but I shouldn't say that, because like Mikey Nack actually was an IT guy that worked for Yahoo. But it's actually surprising how they've managed to like stay afloat all these years without like being DDoSed into oblivion by the government. So I will give Mikey Nack, like Tim Pool could never, like, he couldn't hold a candle to Mikey Nack's IT skills. Like, it's really true. So like, but he was employing all these people, and then
he still does.
No, but like, why can't he run a successful business? Because like Adam Kriegler left and it all fell apart. Like, is that what
as
really
much
happened?
as I'm sure Adam would like that to be the case?
Yeah.
From what I saw in the clips, it was complaining more or less on air, airing your dirty laundry whilst your employees are like working there. That you're the one who's doing all the work. You feel like you're unappreciated, and that it's just so rough and tough, and it feels so unprofessional and out of place. Like, if my boss were to just suddenly start talking shit about his employees in that kind of context, I don't want to work for you. Like, oh, I know your actual opinion now. I'd imagine that there'll be some people quitting soon,
Pool spent an absurd amount of money on his compound. He has a compound, like he's got.
Yeah.
I
mean, he's got quite a bit of real estate that he pays for to make that be a a podcast place.
He's got his Mount Carmel.
He's got his he's like the opposite. Well, he's kind of like the Moonies in that respect. You know, he's a Korean guy with a compound, except instead of like some weird Jesus eschatology, it's just like he's waiting. Instead of waiting for the rapture, he's waiting for like the Civil War.
Yeah, he couldn't make his Osho town. That's like couldn't do it. No, that's a good idea though. Like I'd have like an art gallery and like a podcast studio that is like a in-house type thing. Mike Enoch, Sven, and TRS, the case study of how to create a loyal pen of pigs to fund your neat lifestyle. Well, I mean, we all try.
That's what every super chat in this show goes to Gio.
By the way, SNEED Superchats and the Entropy link is down below. I prefer if you go to Entropy because they take less of a cut. But you know, it's just the kimchi cup. Is he really? I could never tell that he's Korean.
He just looks Korean.
He looks like a mediocre white guy. That's the term mediocre white guy.
Yeah. What every like black lady says on Twitter, where it's I wish I had the confidence of a mediocre white man, and it's just like, well,
what they mean is they actually want the BWC of a mediocre white man. So it's like, you know. Anyway.
Telling on yourself there, buddy. Tell us what you really want.
What are you talking about? My girlfriend's white. Like, if you consider apparently according to the Radio Genoa posted that according to some like news organization, like they say that Irish people are black. They were black. Did you see that?
Oh, the black people built Dublin thing.
Yeah,
and they were like, oh, they were, and of course, you know, it's not where the phrase like the dark or the black comes from any English or ancient.
Yeah.
But regardless of which, it's as Renaud Camus talks about with respects to the Great Replacement, deny that you had any history at all to begin with.
Yeah. No, it's very. I remember. I think it was.
But for other people who don't think that the Irish are white, you can consult with resident sensitive young man scholar and Catholic E. Michael Jones.
There you go. I think it was on a Twitter space. Was it with Vade Pope had where he's like the guy that runs Radio Genoa is like a African guy himself. He's like, we must defend Europa. That was so funny.
Multiracial whiteness strikes again.
Yeah. No, but it's funny because like Radio Genoa, like I mean, I don't know, like I have a problem with those like coal accounts that like post demoralization prawn, where it's like, here's the upteenth migrant beating up a white woman, or like an old guy. Like
I don't need to see that.
Yeah, it is. I understand like the Colin Flaherty tactic of like exposing what actually happens, but at the same time, I think like, yeah, exactly. It's just Vanta Black coal, exactly. Like it's engagement farming. Yeah, it's engagement farming.
It's just coal. But you know the problem, you know what's going on. And also, I mean, is there a place for that content? Probably. Is it be for my consumption? No. I guess.
Yeah, but it's like libs of TikTok. It's
I guess it's normie slappa, I guess. You know, like it's baby's first red pill. Like, you've seen this once, you've seen it a million times. They're going to act like barbarian.
Migrants are violent and resentful? Wow!
You're telling me this for the first time?
You post that picture of the boar, the pig, where his like head's exploding.
Wow! Where's that from? That boar pig explosion thing? I feel like that's like a Twitch emote or something.
It's like a iPhone created an emote that someone
used. those AI ones?
Yeah. Not this is like where you make it yourself. Yeah.
Oh, well, I know Facebook has like their little like image prompt generator that they use to create.
It could have been that. Yeah, it could have been that. Yeah.
But it is pretty good. It is pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah. No, because I like it because it denotes like fake profundity. Like, whoa, my head's exploding. Whoa. Like,
wow, what a truth nuke.
This is a truth nuke. Yeah, this is a truth nuke. You didn't tell me like a migrant beats up white women in Paris? Whoa, truth nuke. Like it's. No, but like I understand like the need.
That says a lot to the banality of how dark and bad things have gotten. That you and I can joke that this has happened for the millionth time. You're expecting me to act surprised. It is so depressing because I should be ready more to invade France and liberate them, but nevertheless, here we are.
No, but that's what I mean. Like I think like what crossed the line from like awareness to just like being
to a point where it's borderline pornography.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like the problem.
Agreed.
But yeah, and I think like, I mean, there's a lot of people that post inspirational stuff. Like I've seen a lot of like, since the McDonald's thing, I've seen like a lot of Trump edits that are like even more higher class than
I'm reminded of that great sleeper Q edit of the code word Ronald McDonald, and it's finally happened.
No, but I think like there's like, I wouldn't want to diminish the accomplishments of the great editor, like Hyperborean editors of the past, like Nuke Telly and Biggie Slonk, and what was the guy's name? Panther Den.
Yes,
but like I think the new generation, they're even more like the editing skills have come. I should say that because actually Nuke Telly did have a lot of editing skills, but like I think like the one I saw today by Distro was like very. It was great. It was incredible. Like it was, you know.
There are some outstanding edits. I will say that.
Outstanding.
I don't think that. I don't know if that energy can ever stay, because I think Trump, for all of his faults and flaws, commanded that kind of meme presence. You know, not a lot of that exists. There are a couple of like kind of, you know, Kino edits of Jared Taylor, like the Jared Taylor like workout,
the
weightlifting workout. Like that's a good one. Yeah. That's a good solid edit. But I also know that
he's doing pull-ups. Yeah,
he's doing pull-ups and some stuff in his like home gym or whatever, and it's great. But at the same time, it's like it's not the same as like the president of the United States that we shit posted a billionaire real estate developer.
That's going to be a quote right there. I wouldn't want to diminish the accomplishments of the great Hyperborean editors of the past.
It's true.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
I don't want to. Can't diminish them. We wouldn't be here without them.
I remember when
how many countless Hyperborean Little Dark Age edits have radicalized some Gen Alpha 12-year-old on TikTok.
I remember the one where it was like Trump on the I think it was Nuke Telly, Trump on the UFO on the flying saucer, and it's got like the snake that I think it was a David Icke. It was from the David Icke book Children of the Matrix, but it was like in the hoodie. And then they went to Agartha, but Agartha's on Mars. So I think like maybe that's why Elon Musk wants to go to Mars, because that's the gateway to Agartha.
I'm at the point where I think Elon. I would love to ask him, and I think that maybe you could, if you were to send a super chat on his like gaming streams, because he has that Twitter alt. What's it, Adrian Dittman or whatever? Adrian Dittman. And I feel like if you were to just ask him, like, "Hey, man, what do you think of the book Chariot of the Gods?" I bet you I'd get a pretty Kino answer.
Man, when I was a kid, I saw the documentary on Discovery, Return to Chariots of the Gods. And again, Chariots of the Gods, and they were in Göbekli Tepe, like the underground city. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was like, came home, I was like, I forget how old I was. And it would terrified me because Eric Von Däniken was like, "What? Why did they build the city underground? Who were they hiding from?" And I'm like, "You're hiding from aliens." That was great. Göbekli Tepe, just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Well, one day we're going.
Why was they underground? I don't know, because it's like 150 degrees during the summer. You tell me.
And when Trump gets elected, he's going to bring back Constantinople, and he's going to transport all of Göbekli Tepe to Arizona, and it'll become a tourist trap. That's what's going to happen.
Just like God intended.
Exactly. But anyways, this is episode 105, and please SNEED those super chats. Go to the entropy link that's down below, but also in the chat. So we have a lot of delicious coal for you.
So much coal.
And I mean, we have to compete with a certain someone tonight.
There's gonna be just so much coal. I'm going to die of black lung on the air. It's gonna be so great.
And next week, hopefully, we will have the fabulous introduction by Penultimum. So, anyways, there was, I guess, before we get to the McDonald's thing and then the Kondylis essay, there was a speech today by Obungun, I think it was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, one big ass Mistake America.
But it was funny because I think it was who pointed out, it may have been ZHP, about like how these empty platitudes would sort of work in 2008, but nowadays it seems very like seeing an older graying Obama that looks more like an Indonesian man by the day. It's like it doesn't really hit anymore, because I think people realize that it's just empty platitudes, and the way that his cadence seems unlike this like revolutionary speech giving that he was marketed as in 2008. Yeah, sorry, that was Martin.
Well,
Now
it's
it just
great.
seems
It's also
boring and stale and condescending. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that energy is gone. I mean, let's also keep in mind Barack Obama was 47 years old when he got into the White House. Like for all intents and purposes, that's pretty young for a president. And especially in modern context, like he was this like great young hip scene for politicking.
Wasn't the youngest before him like Grover Cleveland or?
I think the youngest was Kennedy, if not Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, Kennedy. Yeah, and
Kennedy was incredibly young as well, and so like that the youthful energy of this sort of like early millennial great white hope, but he's actually appealed a cool black guy, and we're all of a sudden going to appreciate the changes that come with that, but those changes never came. Like the legacy of Barack Obama being this like revolutionary, liberal orator, of which, of course, that myth broke as soon as he got away from a teleprompter. But on top of that, right, like you've also got his legacy speaks for itself. Donald Trump is the legacy of Barack Obama. That is the president that gave you. I mean, if George W. Bush gave us Barack Obama, then Barack Obama gave us Donald Trump. Like things were that bad. Because everyone needs to remember, like the Great Awakening starts under him. And then on top of that, after he gets elected and after the 2014 midterms, which was the first election cycle I ever participated in, good Lord, I've been doing election work for 10 years, writing, campaigning, or phone banking. But still, the point is that like after he becomes a lame duck and Republicans take back the House and Senate in 2014, all that he does is just impotently threaten executive orders. He does some of them, and he tries to set up election campaign issues for the 2016 election. So things like free healthcare, Medicare for all, universal community college, DACA, get the migrants legalized. Everything that you can imagine is kicked off under his impotent lame duck last 2 years. And this includes like the JCPOA. This includes the Paris Climate Accords, everything. And so to kind of witness him on the stage now as, the living progenitor, and he's not really the progenitor, but in terms of like contemporary American politics, the guy who kind of introduces a lot of this stuff from the White House that gives us Donald Trump, just to angrily complain, invent, and to be this masculine voice in a campaign that is so effeminate. This is the most millennial female coded campaign ever. And I wouldn't be surprised if those like, Carville leaks or whatever about, them being full of just like, women and gays. I wouldn't be surprised because then the competent people aren't really on the campaign trail. I mean, some of them are, but I'd imagine that a lot of them are just currying favor for power, for whatever State Department job they're going to get or something like that.
Pretty much.
Like that's where the power is going to be. Always has been.
Exactly. But I think like what's very interesting is that he starts off the speech by saying like, why are things so damn divisive now? So divided. And people are like, buddy, look in the mirror. Like it's you created this environment. You created all of the culture. Okay, listen. It wasn't that the world was in perfect harmony before Barack Hussein Obama. Say his name, Barack Hussein Obama. It wasn't like the world was perfect before Obongo, right? And that like Obama basically brought racism back from the grave to like win another election. Like those trends have been in North America and in Europe, the Western world for a very long time.
America
primarily. That was largely a product of academia. But under Obama, you have this sort of guerrilla grassroots, sort of like Tumblrified social techniques that then get exacerbated, that then are reverberated by academics So all of the 2010s was sort of like a front lash. Like, this is what Default Friend always says. Like, the 2010s were really a front lash of what was happening on the ground. And in a way, Obama was the voice of that sort of neoliberal co-opting of it, but nevertheless giving space to a lot of like when we now, and I hate the word because people like James Lindsay have ruined the word wokeness, but what we can call wokeness, or like I call transnational progressivism, that was really reverberated by Obama. Now, transnational progressivism on a global stage, but when it comes to domestic policies, I guess you could say, like domestic culture or politics, you could call it wokeness or whatever. So these things didn't, it's not like Obama like created, he wasn't like the omega point of wokeness. It was just that he was a crystallization of several different trends. And the fact that he did have such a huge cadence and sorry, not a huge, he had such a huge cachet with those particular identity issues, he really utilized them to his full advantage. And so now we have the environment and the sort of constant cultural Sarajevo that we have nowadays, largely because of his administration. But it's not that Obama was like the absolute terminus point of it. It's just that, you know, he really was tapping into a particular zeitgeist.
Well, that he's building off of ruins. And he's also building off of everything that came before him in democratic politics.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we can talk about well, who was it? Eric Holder, and we can talk about all those guys. And also, like, keep in mind, who was his first chief of staff? It was Rahm Emanuel, you know, the former mayor of Chicago, sort of this backdrop to where he was originally from as a good old, like, you know, we got this seat kind of illegally, cough, cough. We definitely did get it illegally, to kind of have this, you know, Senate seat open.
Yeah.
That way we could have Barack Obama get in from the state Senate office and make him one of the youngest presidents in the history of the United States. But on top of that, right, you have the weaponization of the DOJ, which he clearly learned from people like Clinton and Janet Reno.
Yeah,
and it's not like, and I mean, Clinton, of course, was on board as Secretary of State. You know, the first thing that really happens when he gets into office is the troop surge in Afghanistan as well. So there's so much, and I really do wish that the right would perhaps, and I think I need to start doing it with some colleagues and some friends. Maybe the OGC will do it, but I think it cannot be understated how consequential the 2 terms of Barack Obama have been on American politics.
Yeah,
I don't think that you can understate that. They have been incredibly.
When was the troop surge? It was around.
It was 2009. It was 2009.
Oh, I thought
when Barack Obama got into office, there was a surge.
Fallujah was around 2007, right?
No, Fallujah was like very early on in the invasion.
Okay, yeah.
Like we're talking 03, 04, 05.
But the troop surge in 2009, that was like Mosul.
That's under Barack Obama, and on top of that, you have. That's how Lindsey Graham became like pro-Obama. It's just like, what's that? more white boys for the machine. That sounds great, Mr. President. You know, although you have to make him
more
sound
dead Arabs, yeah,
more more gay.
Yeah,
but it
more,
is the
more GAE. Yeah.
It's a
but that's
a disaster.
I think like I think it was Barack Obama. He was talking about this with Blood Satellite, but it's something that I observed where. Not observed. I mean, people have talked about this before. I mean, even Pat Buchanan talked about this, how the Clinton administration accelerated a lot of rightist politics in America, to which the Bush administration was the effective suppression of all of the momentum that the right wing, including the very nascent inklings of the E-right back in the way early 90s with like Usenet and MUDs and so forth. You did have like a lot of right-wing conspiracy theorists and schizos and white nationalists that were on Usenet. And a lot of like the sort of beginnings of NRX. I mean, Molebug was there. So effectively, Bush and the neocons, they suppressed all of that momentum by focusing on an externalized enemy. And now you have, under Obama, which was largely, you could say, an acceleration of that same Clintonian project. And in a sort of, at the same time, a suppression of like anti-war left radicalism and left third worldism as well, even though Obama would usher in the sort of culture where politics of like, you are your third worldist identity. But in terms of the grander geopolitical aims, I mean, it was like largely a suppression of leftist third worldism and the anti-war movement. But at the same time, unlike Bush, he enabled a lot of his radicals, whereas Bush sort of silently helped destroy the moral majority outside of his first term. His first term, you did have like Terry Schiavo or whatever, but then the whole like compassionate conservatism nonsense, that was, ironically enough, not a rejuvenation, but really the death knell of the moral majority and the religious right in America, and paleoconservatism as well. And now you have like the FedCath integralism, post-liberal integralism, that is like sort of like a weirdo 2.0 version of quote unquote compassionate conservatism.
Oh yeah. So it's back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like everything Bush claimed to do, he did the opposite of. And everything Obama claimed to do was also kind of like the opposite of, like being a unifier and being the first post-racial president. But when it came to like harboring the radicals of the political left, but a very narrow margin, not the economic radicals, of course, God forbid, not the anti-war radicals, but sort of like the culture war slop that we see nowadays in the or rather through the 2010s, that was sort of enabled. Whereas the religious right, by the time you get to Bush, it was over. Like it was.
Well, the religious right in America gets shafted in part because there's a war in the Middle East.
That was another one. Oh yeah.
I mean, like I think that really is one of the major factors, but also that by that point, anyways, that so much of these issues, just by both partially demographics, but also just, you can only be feckless and powerless for so long.
Exactly.
But also, like, the idea of, a Christian-oriented conservatism, even George W. Bush, right? Because let's imagine, let's go back in time to August of 2001. We are a month before 9/11. What is one of the biggest political battles happening on Capitol Hill and with his administration? It's banning the use of stem cells that had come
Dolly the Lamb
fetal tissue. And to use that for research. And even a lot of Republicans were like, maybe this isn't the winning issue. And even his own people that he had appointed to work in like the FDA and the National Institutes of Health were like, we actually kind of want this for competitive reasons, and we would be put behind. And this is in the backdrop of how the Koreans are doing with cloning, although a lot of that ends up being fraudulent. But I mean, I remember Bush would have no problem doing the lip service where he would cite scripture. He would talk about these things, and then he'd be like, yeah, but let's remember what it says in the Psalms, for though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death. And it's like, okay, that's nice.
Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death.
Yeah. And I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. But yeah, just absolutely and of course, like every election in the 2008 primary, the Mike Huckabee was kind of like that social con and focus on these issues. And then who else was it? Fucking, oh God, what's his name? Rick Santorum. Like, you want to feel old? Yeah. Rick Santorum was like ran for president, I think 2 or 3 times.
I remember that. Yeah.
So just
my old man really liked Mike Huckabee. He liked Mike Huckabee.
Well,
but then like the
Huckabee name lives on, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So
yeah,
the dynasty will continue.
He's a bass player. He was a pretty good bass player. Mike Huckabee.
There you go. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's pretty good. But no, but like I think like another very interesting thing is that looking at the time of Obama and looking at the position of like the heyday of the libertarian Ron Paul revolution. Now, a lot of people, they look at things, they're like, well, that was a de-radicalization op, or like the neocons were. But I think that you have to really examine what constitutes a de-radicalization op, quote unquote.
There are people who make the claim that like the Ron Paul revolutions of like 2008 and 2012 were de-radicalization ops.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. No, but I think like
that's wild.
That is wild. No, but that's what I mean.
Because so many guys got their start there.
But that's what I mean. Like, this is what I'm getting at, though.
Okay.
That,
okay.
Like, you can claim something's a de-radicalization op, but you have to like really look at the fruits of that particular movement. And the fruits of the Ron Paul revolution not only gave us the alt-right, but you could say that the way that the state and the way that the Republican Party treated Ron Paul, very similar to the way that Bernie was treated by
yeah, I'm
although I
getting
would say
hold on.
Bernie's oh yeah, no problem. But I would say that Bernie is closer to the Democrats than Ron Paul was to the Republicans. But I think that instead of looking at things like as a quote unquote de-radicalization, I think that the Ron Paul revolution and the sort of heyday of libertarianism came about because of the particular anxieties of people on the political right that didn't have a meaningful way to express it as an identity issue, but rather as economic issues, and sort of the very like the sort of like libertarian market fundamentalism and like ending the Fed and so forth. That was sort of like an expression of things that were much deeper. But the problem was that that ideology can only go so far, as we know. And Ron Paul did do a lot for us. But the thing is that the heyday of like hard-nosed libertarianism, that goes back to like the Jeffersonian yeoman ideal. And that was a way for the right wing in America to express itself without having to confront the huge overarching apparatus of cultural issues that Obama created in terms of like political orthodoxy. But then as time went on, a lot of people, they went from libertarianism to like either like passive or explicit white nationalism for a reason. And I think that's because a lot of those anxieties were bound up with identity issues as opposed to just solely economic ones. And I think that Ron Paul was a very good jumping off point from the Tea Party, because as we know, the Tea Party was this like weirdo, at the end of it was like a sort of like weirdo co-option by the Republicans. And so you do have a lot of these instances where movements rise and fall, but the ashes of those movements, they then create something more meaningful in its other iterations. So, I mean, yeah, you can look back favorably on Ron Paul, and it did give us a lot of things. It did give us a lot of awareness about things. But yeah, I think that as a whole, in terms of like looking at it as a de-radicalization thing, it didn't produce any form of de-radicalization. But at the time, I think that it would have served the regime more to like, it serves the like transnational progressive regime to have right-wingers focus on economic issues, but that's out of the bag. Nobody cares anymore. And libertarianism is pretty much done. And I think that it would sort of like serve people to go back to it in terms of like from a regime perspective. But at the time, Ron Paul presented something very new and very different. And he was taking a lot of the sort of like jeu de vie of libertarianism that was happening in the 90s. We had like these weirdo hippies and countercultural people, and like Robert Anton Wilson going to Libertopia in 94. You have all this energy, but then of course you have like the downside of like a lot of libertarians were into like certain Sussy Baca stuff back in the 1990s. But what Ron Paul did was he presented like a truly grassroots, forward-facing optical movement that the right wing could cling on to, that had a very objective, meaningful goal after Occupy Wall Street. Of course, Occupy Wall Street was sort of like that for the political left till it was co-opted by the Obama regime. But then, of course, what happened afterwards is that people started to grow out of libertarianism. And then you have this like other iteration that then culminated into the alt-right and then the alt-light, from which the alt-light largely came from Gamergate, but that's, like that's the basic timeline.
Well, also that Ron Paul had been involved in politics for decades prior.
Yeah.
He had famously, and remember, he had sort of been mocked for his position on drug legalization, because I remember him being on I don't remember it, I've seen the clip, but he was on like the Morton Downey Jr.
Jr.
And he was like ridiculed by the audience because he's like, oh, you want to legalize drugs? You must be some kind of like, F slur or whatever. And it just sort of tells you where things were back then in comparison to now. But I mean, Ron Paul was offering an alternative for the right. He said it. He said he did the meme.
Andy Nowicki, AlternativeRight.com.
Yeah, I know. But essentially, for what purpose? Well, simple, to offer clearly a much needed alternative from neoconservatism and the war and the exhaustion, and maybe we need to modernize as a party, because if not, we're going to lose elections. Like, we're going to get clobbered.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like, the whole "we need an alternative" thing had been taken advantage of countlessly by the right. But that libertarianism, like that, "oh, I'm a classical liberal," that's been used countless times for de-radicalization ops or whatever.
Well, like
and it's really
like,
unfortunate, because like the parts of libertarianism, like even their intellectual heavyweights, for whatever you can criticize libertarianism for, and there's a lot to criticize. But even Murray Rothbard and the rest of them in the Lou Rockwell report in the 90s, shortly before he died, he was like, listen, libertarianism is going to come under attack by a bunch of people that want to just say, I hate my dad and I want to smoke weed, and I hate my dad for taking me to church on Sundays. And that was that was the article about modal libertarianism.
I want to do OnlyFans. I want to be in a polycule like Kathy Riezowitz.
That
people
was
pay
that.
for OnlyFans, man.
That's sad.
That's hey, she's got a good body though, but not like I'm not going to do the objectification of women thing, but it's like Kathy Riezowitz is a very toxic type of. Anyways,
you say the word "would" all the time, but we won't objectify.
I wouldn't with her. No way.
Chief women respect her.
She's genuinely evil, though. That's the thing. She's
so
very.
True.
Yeah, she's evil. But the point being is that, like, okay, look at people, like, look at like the slop media complex that you have with the dawn of podcasting. And I hate to like say it, but like Joe Rogan did usher in a metric ton of slop. But like, and then you have like people like Tim Pool. Like, really, what does Tim Pool serve besides being an interviewer, to which he's not that good at anyways? Not to toot our own horn here, but like, I don't see the need of people like Tim Pool. I hate to say it. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the media complex and the dissident or alternative media. It's like, it's needless. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of bloat. And I think like if a lot of that bloat could be chipped away at, I think it's ultimately a good thing. Because then people that actually do have a lot of meaningful discourse and ideas can rise to the top. But unfortunately, that doesn't work that way, because a lot of people, they're kind of addicted to slop. So it's like a chicken or egg thing. It's like, do people inherently love Cole, or is it that the media apparatus pushes things that are low IQ and that are not as meaningful, or just chase like the discourse of the day, rather than looking at things from a long view? Is it that people are implanted with that idea, or is it that people always love things that are very easy and very like, looking at, like, listening in the background while you're, whatever?
We run about an average 3-hour show, and about 1 hour of that is the news. So I mean, I don't know.
But I mean, I don't know, like, what is Tim Pool like? What, like, I can't think of any of his positions besides basic centrism. I can't really.
So here's a question I would ask.
Why do Tim Pool make me think something?
Why do you listen to Joe Rogan, or why do people listen to Joe Rogan?
Well, it's not because for Joe Rogan, obviously.
Exactly, it's because of the guests. So why do you listen to Tim Pool?
For the guests.
Exactly, that's the reason why. These people like Lex Fridman and the rest, they're not great by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think that they're particularly good interviewers. But I also think that it's not for me. So in terms of the great sloppa that we have to deal with, of course they're going to be the rise to the top on these issues. They're the ones that are clearly, getting the top names, and they're safe. Like we saw this happen when a certain African-American gentleman was on the air a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, that like he walked out. And what'd they do? They spent the next hour and a half talking about how I don't judge a collective. I'm an individualist. Da 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 da. So you have to play it incredibly safe, and of course they're going to keep it kosher and not touch certain issues. That's just how it's going to be. And that allows you to. That was
great
safe.
though. That was a great move by Kanye. I gotta say, that was a great move. That was entertaining. Like, it was very funny how the Kanye thing was. It was a very a state of exception period, because he would go on all these shows and it's wow, literally the biggest rapper in the world hanging out with these dissident right figures like Fuentes and Alex Jones, and it's and then he went on Ukraine, then he went on Tim Pool, and then he left, and it was Tim Pool just trying to desperately cling on to some content when he saw those view counts. It was like at 100,000 live viewers, and then it went down to 80, went down to 20, and he's like panicking. Like it was like, that was very funny. But no, but I think, yeah, you're right. It is true. But I think like when it comes to Lex Fridman, there tends to be this weird like Silicon Valley influence, like
I feel like they just pulled him out of some like agency roster. They're like, the CIA or Masada was like, okay, Joe Rogan is gone. Like, we need an easily malleable, interviewer to take over YouTube while he's on Spotify. And it's just like, Lex, you don't actually work at MIT. You've never done anything meaningful in your life. Come here, my boy. We have things to talk about.
No, but what I mean is like around Lex Fridman, you have this weird, like, okay, people that are online, but they're still normies, because like there's like this weird convergence of different influences from like Silicon Valley tech bros who are like crypto bros or tech people or startup people, like masculinity influencers that are not explicitly manosphere people, but are also working in tech or have some like kind of like coaching gig, like Andrew Huber. Like there's something between like Elon Musk, Andrew Huberman, what's the guy, Johnson, Moonbra, what's his name, Moonbra?
I don't know. Oh, Brian Johnson. Sorry.
Brian Johnson, yeah. Like there's like a weird like space where they still get like 100. I guess Jordan Peterson would also be like in this mix.
Oh,
where
definitely.
you have like Silicon Valley adjacent, tech bro adjacent, manosphere adjacent. They're kind of like libertarian. They're kind of right wing on certain issues, but not really. But they don't mind the right wing. It's like you have this like weird alt media thing that revolves around Joe Rogan and Lex Fridman and Elon Musk. That is like, in another time you could say is kind of Reddit, but not really, because they do entertain certain problematic things, but not real ones. I know that term subject. Yeah, exactly. Subject change. But I'm just saying, like, for optics sake, like, there's like this weird tech bro thing that's going on where they're think influencers. Like they may have written for not Compact, but they may have written for Unheard, but they're influencers. It's like this weird space. I don't know. It's this weird, like, they're very like normie bait, but not like but normies that are still like online. Not like turbo normies. Yeah, it's like this weird liminal, like semi-mainstream space, but not really means. Yeah. Kissin is in this, of course. Trigonometry, Kissin. Does Kissin work for Trigonometry?
Yes, he's one of the co-hosts.
Okay, yeah, with that other like Ukrainian ethno-nationalist. Oh, sorry, yes. I mean, he's a libtard, but he's
just like the guys at the Babylon Bee.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sorry, I hate doing drama.
I can't believe Oren. People have like called Oren like alt, that word that
alt lights and everything else.
But he's saying that Matt Dillon is an ethno-nationalist, but just for the state of Israel. Like he's literally tweeting that out. What do you people want from Oren? Do you want him to just like post a spinny wheel edit? Is that what you want? Like it's
I would actually I want to do that. I'll make the edit, and it's just like, "Hi everybody, I've got a great stream with a great guest. You're really going to love it." Like the spinny wheel in the background keeps going a little harder.
Oren McIntyre will bring on Mikey on the podcast.
This is a great way this is how I know I'm going to get a fun DM later, being like, "Hey Matt, what the hell's going on?"
No, but like he's literally saying like. He's pointing out the obvious, and people give him shit. It's just I don't know, but no. But the point being is that trigonometry's in this, where like you got one guy that's like a Israel firster, and then you have another guy that's like a Ukrainian firster, but they're somehow like dissident media. You have like Joe Rogan, bro, science, MMA, thinkfluencer, tech, Silicon Valley, Andrew Huberman type stuff. It's all this thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's this weird media space. Yeah,
like the whole but also there's a huge, and again, I think that this speaks to just maybe how out of touch we are with the. I'll use that word. We're out of touch with respects to say normie media, because I mean, like, look at the large podcasting sort of track that
Oh yeah, thousands upon thousands of views.
That Trump has gone on, and now J.D. Vance has been on Theo Vaughn and all the others. So it is really telling.
Yeah, Theo Vaughn's another one. Yeah, Theo Vaughn's another one.
But he's entertaining. I will say that Theo is entertaining. Plus, it's nice to hear that accent be said in a popular media context that isn't derogatory, like this is a fucking episode spinoff of Deliverance. So it's nice to see that, but also like he's just a comedian kind of guy. Like he's entertaining. Otherwise, you wouldn't be successful if you weren't at least a modicum of entertaining, having that factor in you. But nevertheless, it does illustrate that you and I don't consume this, so you and I have a totally different understanding of maybe like what constitutes this sort of stuff. Not saying that there aren't actual containment operations. God knows that there are, but at the same time, some of this is just part of the mainstream press, and you and I just don't consume that.
Yeah, true. I mean, how mainstream they are. I mean, I guess a lot of people have heard of Theo Vaughn. A lot more people have heard of Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And Lex Friedman. So like, yeah, and Elon Musk is definitely like, he's at the top in terms of.
I love seeing all of those libtards being like, I bought this car before I knew who he was. And it's just like, get in the crystal. Get in the crystal.
Yeah, it's kind of like Harry Potter regret.
Yeah.
Like being a Potter kid. Yeah. I can't believe how is the Blue Jackets doing 4-0? And that's impossible. Like, is it just like their mission? It's like that's like the Columbus Blue Jackets playoff every single year is to just beat the Maple Leafs. That's you know what I mean? It's like every team plays like in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs when they face the Maple Leafs. It's just like, I don't know. Anyways,
got to put Canada down.
So and double Toronto shots on goal too. Oh my god. So the Donald Trump McDonald's thing.
Mickey D's.
That was incredible.
Donald D's nuts. But yeah, like it's what a great.
You have a rant about that?
Well, I don't have much to really rant on other than to simply say what a good tool to do, because it's the lowest job that you can imagine. When people look at Mickey D's, people look at any fast food or barista job, and they're like, that's you if you don't go to college. And now there are some, I know that there are some criticisms out there that says that like Trump is sort of the embodiment of just like low IQ populism. But I'm sorry, in an election where you kind of need to do shit like this, it's not bad and it's a good strategy. Just to watch everyone rant and rave like, oh, the McDonald's. And it's just like, well, most people go there. It's a pretty damn American institution, for better or for worse. Definitely for worse.
It is a global American institution, let's face it. Yeah.
It really is. I'm trying really hard not to say that other kind of word with slop. But, boy,
Oh, yeah.
But I thought it was good. Like, for an optics perspective, I think it was just a really well done bit to tell the American people.
Actually, it was staged. Actually, it wasn't like it was staged.
Did he still serve? But he still served fries. And look at that; they never touched the hand. But I mean, he didn't condescend himself. Like, what makes Trump better than any other Republican candidate in my lifetime is that if these rich, venture fund or venture capitalist hedge fund assholes want to connect with people, they pay a consultant like $150,000 a minute to be told you need to wear a $40,000 pair of blue jeans so you look relatable. Like, that's Mitt Romney, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump doesn't consent himself. He's not in jeans. He's in his suit and tie, the same signature power business suit that he's in, and all he does is take off the jacket.
He's got the robe though. He
just takes off the jacket. He does the job, and and he connects to the average American goes to McDonald's.
But he was really humble, like when they were teaching him how to make the fries. Like, he wasn't like impatient or whatever. Like, and the fact, like,
it was a great humanizing moment.
You can really, the one thing you could say about Trump is that being a businessman for so long, he really is good with like talking people up, like the people that went to the door. And they were selected they were Trump supporters. But like, when you have someone that goes to this window, and he is a Trump supporter, the Indian guy. Maybe it was Indian Bronson.
No, Indian Bronson hates working class whites too much to do something like that.
I can't. He still is my friend. I can't bash him too hard.
I'm not wrong. I'll double down.
No, but the point being is that the Indian guy, he's like, I pray for you. What politician besides Obama? I will say, okay, Obama in 2008. I will say that he did have that energy. But in terms of like even going, maybe Ronald Reagan, maybe Kennedy, because he was Catholic, so okay. But like in recent memory, what politician would inspire that level of devotion to say, I pray for you? Will anyone say, I pray for Kamala Harris? No. So will I pray for Tim Walz? No. And so I think like...
You should.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like,
but no, I get what you mean. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not saying this like in the litanies where it's like, and for the president of the United States, the armed forces and civil authorities, let's Lord have mercy. Right. But I mean, God, it's a terrifying disaster that we're in.
Using 9/11, yeah, okay.
Bush did that. I mean, Bush did that a lot. But also, there are some people who are loyal in that respect.
Bush worked in a diner. Remember, almost exactly the same day. Bush worked in a diner in New Hampshire for a day.
Yeah, because he's trying to win a primary.
That was funny seeing him like hand out coffee. That was funny. Like that was in the 90s news account. They like posted that on the day that Trump did it. The 90, that 90s news.
Yeah.
1999 news.
Yeah. This day 25 years ago or whatever.
I love that, man. It just really brings me back. There were so many things that happened in 1999. But but the point being is that like there is a lot of people were saying that it didn't look capricious, that it looked natural. The waving at the McDonald's window, it looked like a Norman Rockwell painting.
Yeah, it's funny, that's absolutely true.
My good friend Jay Elliott, he did an amazing color study of go to Jay Elliott's Twitter page. And he did an amazing color study of that window scene. So shout out to Jay Elliott, great artist. He probably will make prints. So if he makes prints, go and buy them. Maybe I'll interview him on the show one day. He did a great painting. But the point being is that it did look like Trump looks like, and I know it's a clown show. I know that the politician may not pan out to be what we all want him to be. I know all this criticism. It's true.
Yeah, he is not deserving. Trump is not deserving of the loyalty he has because American right wingers and really just by extension American whites deserve so much better. But Trump picked up the crown in the gutter for better or for worse.
And he has, my point being is that he has a piece of Americana where instantly he can create a photo op that looks like a Norman Rockwell painting, that looks like what people harken back to as an American ideal. Like, do you remember when managers at McDonald's wore suits? Do you remember when you had this, like, he almost looked like one of the malt shop worker in the Norman Rockwell painting of like the cop and the little kid. Yeah, like exactly. You know what I mean? Like it inspires something. But I do think that I think it was another mutual of mine, and it was Jay Elliott that said like the photo after he waved where he's looking in the McDonald's window. Now you have the Edward Hopper version of America where Trump is bringing forth this immense weight upon like the sort of like modern alienation of America. I had this great essay back in Thurman Magazine days. You could go to my WordPress. It's still archived. I believe it's Content Mine in Volume 1, where I compare Norman Rockwell's vision of America to Edward Hopper's vision of America. I think it was like one of the best essays I've ever done. But yeah, so I think Trump, in the span of a few months, like look at all the iconic photos, look at the fist raise, look at the wink and the thumbs up, and now you have the McDonald's thing. Like it's incredible, and I think that even if he doesn't win, there's still a preservation of a legacy there. There still is like a moment where there was something that is very integral to the spirit of America that Trump was tapping into. Even if he doesn't win. I mean, if he doesn't win, we're all going to have egg on our faces, and it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be, what do you do? Packer A just checked someone through the glass. Anyways, I have to see the replay of the game. No, but the point being is that, like, there is something there. And even if Trump doesn't win, there would still be like that mimetic energy. It has to go somewhere.
Yeah, it does.
And
however, I think that Barack Obama's article, to the great man, sort of talking about like a post-Trump world, whether he wins or not, like what do we do now? Well, as a certain other person said, for the next great man, and we're going to have to deal with that to some extent, because that's what we're going to have to fight, and that's what we're going to have to work with. But I think that the fundamental truth is that whether it's that photo or any of the photos from this month or him coming down the elevator or every edit, the egregore that has been developed out of Trump, and by extension just all these edits, all these like right-wing memes and everything, has been said that what we're doing, there's no more of what came before. It's so funny to listen to the Dems, especially like Kamala Harris, do this like, we're not going back. And it's like, well, we're not going back either. And we refuse to go back. Because what is going back? More of the same? More of this ridiculous, just placid, well, as long as they're here legally kind of discussion? No, thank you. I refuse.
Yeah.
Everyone else is tired. Everyone else is done. And for the first time in a long time, there is just honest conversations about what the hell needs to be done. And I don't think Trump is capable of accomplishing that, although if he lets people, in his circle kind of do the job for him, I may have a different opinion, but only time will tell. But I still remain steadfast in knowing that out of everything that's happened in the last, decade or so, that politics will never be the same as it is. And that, if you're like NRX 1.0, right? Like, oh, I'm a formalist, then shouldn't you be so happy that everyone is formally on board saying in your face, he must be arrested, he must be killed, we must put you all in jail, we must make sure that like your replacement is accelerated and so permanent that you will never have a voice again? Like, formally coming out and saying, mask off, you do not deserve existence. Like, that's that's sort of an acceleration, that most people are kind of getting whiplash from. But at the same time, like, wow, like, we would not be at this level of discourse if we ever kept the gravy train running with like the Bushes and Romneys of the world. We wouldn't.
Apparently, Biden just said that Trump should be in prison.
Yeah, I know. That's why I made that claim. Because like Kamala Harris has been like trying to be a little less, I guess, extreme in her rhetoric, but Biden was just like, well, we need to lock him up. Trying to echo that, lock her up energy.
2016 energy. Yeah. But that's
crazy stuff.
A lot of it is felt virtually. So I think that, either way,
oh yeah,
there really will be either total elation on our side or total defeat. And I think that there's...
Well, the hour is nigh. There is no room for half measures.
And I think that either way, there's going to be a lot of like serious, very like weighty questions, and like a lot of like to look at things very like with a form of like responsibility and seriousness. I think would have to be either way, if he wins or loses, will be warranted. So, how much we can actually do, who knows, right? But that being said, it was a great photo op. And it
sure was
tapping into something, but whether that can translate into something meaningful is obviously. What was that Mystery Grove tweet that? What did you say? Trump will heal your wounds.
Oh, I thought it was in 31 minutes I will turn 41, and here's all the things I have to say.
Oh, that, but also like he said, Trump winning will heal your wounds or something. Something like that.
I remain, I don't know, like super. I don't like. I've said it like 2 or 3 shows in a row at this point, but it's just like I don't black pill publicly on Maine because I don't want to get like torn apart by our mutuals and such. But at the same time, I don't believe that they'll pull every stop. They'll pull every stop, and so I remain. So until every result is finally tallied in, or until he's sworn in.
Until he is sworn in. The world with love. Yeah.
Like, until he's sworn in, I'm not really confident in anything that they're going to throw at me. So I could be, could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be told, actually, no, like, he's going to win, and here's all the reasons why. But I don't know if that's true or not. And I don't see it happening. So I want to be wrong.
But I mean, if he wins, and I mean, either way,
if he wins, I want him to win. Not because I expect a sinecure, but because that buys me 4 years to acquire, time, money, wealth, anything to prepare for what comes next. Because I don't know what comes after Trump. No one does.
Yeah.
Hopefully on the right, we continue to move further rightward. God knows that would be a surefire sign of good news, but I don't know.
No, but also not just for the right way, but I think that also like a form of maturity or a form of gravity to what we do is much needed, because say if he wins, the newer face of the right has to really buck the boomer conservative trend of, okay, when our guy's in power, we're going to go to sleep and things are just going to happen, and it gives us time to like grill. That trend has to be destroyed. If Trump wins, there has to be a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, there's no room to grill. And when I mean by time, I don't mean, I'm running off to go grill. I mean, no. There is 4 years, if not less, to tell you, if you're going to say you're staying in America, like, you got to secure your small town. You got to do whatever. You got to make friends with law enforcement, XYZ, control it. But if not, and you're like, say you're getting out of there, or, or worse, like, well,
what does the political left have been doing since Obama?
Well, really, even earlier than that.
Since earlier, yeah.
Basically, but like they've made being right wing illegal.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they made the right wing illegal, effectively. So if you were to break the back of a lot of these patronage and influence networks on the political left, if you were to essentially make huge swaths of left activism illegal the way that they do with us, then that would be meaningful. That would be more, in fact, you could say that, well, I shouldn't say it's more meaningful than a border wall, but you know what I mean? Like, it's as meaningful, I think, as a border wall. They're both meaningful, but there was a great thing, and I see that my friend Goran's in the chat. There's a great thing that the recent War Report episode, they were talking about this, of like, okay, say Trump doesn't win, and you have like 2028, and then what, 2030? 2031?
32.
32. America will look way different in 2032 than it is in 2024. So you have to really like contemplate for a moment what that would look like. And
the next 2 election cycles, there will be less and less, if not no, there'll be a lot of dead baby boomers and a much more non-white, left-leaning demographic.
Yeah.
And it will, again, continue to be this bifurcation that we have seen. I really do think it's impressive that to watch Kamala struggle with, like, even male voters. I don't trust polls to save my life, but, when there is some data where it's like saying 3 in 10 men, and I would love to see that broken down by race, because Georgia's like half white, half black at this point. Yeah. Just to see what that looks like along racial lines, because it's just like, oh wow, you're telling me along those dividends that basically this election is bifurcated amongst sex and race, and that really the only things that we have to show for it is that we have a deeply unpopular female. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, I talked about that in the core report, about like division by gender. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, man, like we've basically just like the sex division in our politics is so crazy. I mean, I get it. Like, the women, especially lately, have been the far more progressive leaning part of the electorate, and they have been for a long time. But it is wild to see that, it has been so bifurcated down the sexes. I don't see that going away anytime soon. I think that you have to, like, the sex war, so to speak, between these issues, especially because they'll continue to make female reproductive care, one of their standard talking points forever. It's so wild to watch it play out the way that it has. That we're unless some rift gets healed, some return to sanity, some lithium bicarbonate gets into the water supply. I don't, like you just have to start wielding power. And that means telling women no with a lot of force. Because again, a whole political machine is oriented towards the fact that they're supposed to, women, these mean old men are acting like your dad. And you want to say, you don't want to be like, you don't want to obey your dad, do you? And it's like, no. And it's just like, great. So you're going to, murder your baby, right? Like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to vote for me, right? Yeah. And that's what it is. And there's so many reasons for that you can get into, but I'm blown away by how fast that's accelerated. There's just no room for, just
no. But would you agree with the assessment that if like Trump didn't deliver the destruction of Roe versus Wade, he would have basically won? Like it would be an inevitability that he would win, or no? I don't know. That's a black pill from a pro-life perspective, though. Like, God, yeah.
I don't know. However, I think I don't know. You could argue that I probably would have it in the bag because he could campaign on it. But even then, well, no, because even if it wasn't gone, it would still be an election issue.
Yeah, true.
And it would still be an election issue regardless of Dobbs. Like, it doesn't matter what. If it was still the law of the land or not. I mean, yes, that has been a main central campaign issue. And you can see that from all the polling data, from all the interviews that they've had with all these women, that yes, abortion is a main central issue to them. Excuse me. But I don't know if it would have gone away, because if it was still the law of the land, yeah, the best thing if it were still the law of the land is that pro-lifers would be less transparently douchey on Maine. How dare Trump not go full in on like a full total ban? I'm like, do you want to win, or do you just? And I mean, you already know the answer to this. They want to lose. They want to purity spiral because they're not pro-Trump. But it's so wild to see everything just be so transparently the way that it is. And it's I mean, I would argue that it's a good thing. The more and more that these things just become out in the open, the better it is for the rest of us.
Yeah. But I went on this, like, if you go to patreon.com/Giant Productions or substack.com/Gio's Content Corner, I talked about this in the latest episode of the Core Report, like how it's a division by gender, but also the pro-life movement and Republicans and conservatives here in Canada, like basically as a whole, and largely because of the neocons, they didn't really focus on a lot of culture or a lot of things that could shore up a society that could, basically treat this medical procedure as unthinkable. Instead, what they tried to do is solely focus on legal politics, constitutionalism, foreign policy, maybe, like winning elections, electoral politics. Those are things that, like, as soon as you impose on the back door your own, like, pro-life maximalist views on the rest of the population, of course you're going to get a backlash because you haven't really done work in any other area that could basically prep people for the mindset that, that abortion is like a grave misjustice. Instead, what they did is like, okay, we're going to focus on lawfare, and it really doesn't matter. And so then for the view of most people, because, like, let's face it, most people are kind of programmable, it comes off as very, what's the word, pernicious? Like, It comes off as very pernicious, that you're imposing immorality on us. I mean, all societies impose their morality on people, even our society, even though we have this totally, like, libertine whatever. But the point being is, if you're not going to work to instantiate that society, then it's over. And of course you're going to have, like, even red states voting against total bans. So it wasn't really smart. It wasn't really smart because a lot of these people, let's face it, they're in these evangelical and Catholic circles where they have their own like media that they consume, and it's sort of like they live in a bubble. And yeah, like I'm really,
well, we also
I've
live in
really
a bubble
soured on the
too.
pro-life movement. Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
all live in the bubble. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the other thing too is that it is interesting to watch sort of these groups have either totally lived out, and Scott Greer has a great piece
Here
on
you
this.
go. That's a good example of it.
Yeah, where he was just like, listen, and for the most pro-lifers, they're great on one issue, and it's being anti-abortion. They are total libs on just about everything else. And it's interesting to watch the sort of compassionate conservatism when you're talking about that sort of like Adrian Vermeule, like my heckin' wholesome FedCath thing, because even while Trump and Vance are trying to soften their position on abortion. I mean, even Ivanka kind of came out in that video that she was like kind of like pro-choice sounding, or at least, you know, she wasn't anti-abortion. And, you know, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. It's not like either of them are well-known social conservatives or religious people. But, you know, to listen to JD Vance do the whole, well, you know, that means we need to not only, you know, be pro-life, but we also need to do ensure that people have a good life and have good jobs and have good schools. Like, it sounds like something like the left would say when complaining about being anti-abortion. That, you know, like, oh, you know, if the right were to say, they would always criticize Republicans being like, oh, they're pro-life until you get out of the womb. You know, like that was always their line.
Exactly.
And so like Vance is kind of taking that and moving it in a direction that could be what I presume will be some kind of compassionate conservatism 2.0. You know, like I'm sure that Sohrab Ahmari will be so happy until he gets put into the crystal. But it does illustrate
but
that that's where things are going.
Yeah, but the thing is they don't focus on that because what do they focus on? They focus on Vance saying like childless cat ladies.
Well, even though he's right about that, but yeah, no, I get what you mean. But
yeah, but
on a policy level, that's what he's focusing on.
Yeah,
and I'm noticing that shift in rhetoric. Things have substantially gotten maybe 20% more nativist, but you know, at a huge cost of whatever the conservative wing of America is and party politics significantly liberalize on most other issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with a form of
like even Trump like is pro-weed.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm fine with like socialistic economic policies if it means that you also get right-wing social values. I mean, well, some people have called that fascism, but like the point being is that JD Vance, you know, like not that I would call it fascism, because fascism is a historical thing that isn't really applicable in terms of like the category of what we are currently the political divide in current day North America.
Yeah, no, but you're witnessing. I guess what would you call it then? I guess like it's like a post-lib social program or post-left social programming.
Yeah, and the thing, like, I agree with Barack Obama in that interview with Blood Satellite is that unfortunately JD Vance is kind of carried away by like online discourse to the point where like he will entertain like these fedcasts like Vermeule and Sohrab Ahmari. He will say stuff like childless cat ladies because he heard this in a message group. And he heard this online. He heard like whoever saying it. He heard like a frog saying childless cat ladies. So unfortunately, though, it's very hard to translate that online atmosphere to a greater audience. And so,
that's true.
Yeah, you know, and I think it is a positive thing if conservatism in America could break a taboo on more economic populist and even economically socialist policies, and also environmentalism to wrestle that away from the left, but also to like really prep a society that would be ready to adopt more social conservative values and a less interventionist foreign policy. Like that's ultimately the best you're going to get. And so a lot of people will call it fascism, but you have to like step over it and say, whatever you call it, it's like, who cares? You know what I mean?
I mean, the left will call you a fascist anyways. Doesn't matter what you do. So, I mean, like, just step over the label at this point.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're not donning Hugo Boss. Like, you're not, okay?
Yeah.
It's two guys that are deeply flawed characters that are just like, no. It's gotten to a point where even the richest people in America, who aren't even Americans by any stretch of the imagination, the point has basically gotten to it, the ability to function as a civilization cannot happen
Yeah.
And that's how bad it's gotten, is that we are functionally incapable of basic civilizational tenets, such as law and order, freedom of speech, although it's very liberal in that sense. But, like, none of that exists. It's gone. So what do? Well, clearly that makes us rightists because we want... And I mean, that's the whole... I mean, even... I don't know if I would even call Curtis right-wing in some ways, but even Curtis was just like, I'm right-wing because I want shit to work. And it's like, that's the level of how bad things have gotten.
Yeah.
Is that you're right wing because you want things to function. And if it's gotten that bad,
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Oh, you know what's something I didn't catch at the time of the debate? Do you remember that viral tweet by some leftard journalist where he said, like, that JD Vance proposing to, like, lower housing rates is by having, like, mass remigration? He's like, that's literally what fascism and the Austrian painter did. But I'm thinking, like, but you're not, like, for Lobbytstrom or whatever, you're not annexing, you're not, like, going to Mexico and taking more of Mexico.
Yeah, there's no Lebensraum here.
You're just literally freeing up space that's in America to begin with. That's people that shouldn't be in there. So how can you compare it to the Austrian painter going to Eastern Europe and taking Lobbytstrom if you're literally just kicking people out that have no business being there in houses and land in America that is already in America? Like, it's so stupid to say that it's fascism or the Austrian painter regime. Like, it's just, sorry, I'm getting pissed off because the Leafs are absolutely choking it. But I can't believe the Leafs have one amazing game and they destroy it by getting crushed by an outlaw mud show like the Columbus Blue Jackets. But the point being is that, like, to call it fascism or to call it the Austrian painter regime is ridiculous because that land is already in America, being occupied by people that are illegally occupying America. So you're not going and invading Mexico or Canada to get more housing. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's just like, that guy deserves to go in the crystal, okay? For 10,000 years, I'm in so much pain. That was such a great boogie clip. I'm in so much pain.
Lord have mercy.
No, but you know what I mean? Proved by them saying, like, everything's fascism, everything's the Austrian painter. It's like you're not annexing other territory. You're just, these people don't have a right to be there. Like, it's just... It's so stupid when people call it that. It's just, I don't know. And that's a great jump off to Kondylis, whatever. I like saying Kondylis. And Planetary Politics.
He's got a great first name.
Yeah. How do you pronounce his first name?
Panagiotis.
Panagiotis Kondylis. Yeah.
The male version of Panagia, the Virgin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's Greek.
Very interesting. Anyways.
Let's load that baby up. Let's do it.
All right. Where is it? It's in the entropy link.
Speaking of reading, Gio, do you want to come on in a couple of...
We're not gonna read word for word, but we'll definitely read huge sections of it.
We'll read big chunks of it as we do. Speaking of reading, though, Gio, I'd imagine that because you and I have already read this text, not this text. I'm talking about something else. That you and I you should come on when Dimes and I go and read through Anti-Oedipus.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's been a very long time since I read Anti-Oedipus.
Same here, so I thought it'd be a good refresher on top of the fact that it'll be Dimes' first time reading it.
Yeah.
I like how my audience was like, oh, this is an interesting book you two are reviewing, and then Dimes' audience was like, why are you covering this retarded book?
Oh, man. But anyway, so Kondylis was a sort of like a hidden gem of continental political theory. Very, influential on Paul Godfrey, but he knew various languages. He translated pretty much every major continental philosopher into Greek and in German, and from Heidegger to Hegel to Derrida, but also he's known for his overt political works. And this is one of the few ones translated into English, but there is the Kondylis project that is trying to translate more of his works. And the account Kondylis Graper on Twitter, I believe, is involved, or he's trying to translate Kondylis's work. So, and this is the link to the project, the email, but you can find I believe, a website, a landing page for the PK project, the Panagiotis Kondylis project. And we're just going to read a part of Planetary Politics in the Mass Democratic Age. It's really an instrumental chapter in the rest of his works. And I don't know. What chapter, like what passage really stood out to you, Prude? Should we just like read from the beginning?
I say we read from the beginning.
All right. Oh boy, sorry. I'm just like I'm getting steamed at the Maple Leafs being crushed by an
Do you want me to read then, Gio, while you fume and cope and see?
I'll read a little bit. I do.
It's only a game. Why do you have to
I know. It's not that it's only 5 games in the season. I'm trying to determine their historical position and imagine their historical perspectives. So form an historical phase of planetary politics. But I guess before we read, what would be like your standard operating definition of planetary politics to Kondylis? Like if you had to give people a definition.
Oh man. I'm not too sure. Because when I hear planetary politics, I think of Marsili and not Kondylis. But I'm not well read on Kondylis, so I cannot offer you the best
definition.
Answer, definition.
Well, essentially, it's the prevailing politics after the Cold War, the end of history, the sort of like consensus among like the geopolitical consensus, and so he goes into it throughout the book. And also like this chapter, nationalism between radical tradition and mass democracy, that's a really good chapter too. But we should go into it. So form and historical phases of planetary politics. So now he's trying to get into like what it actually is. In trying to determine their historical position, imagine their historical perspectives, the respective individual and collective subjects as a rule seeks as far as possible accurate prognosis of developments and events, and as if they wanted to and could take hold of future with their hands. Fears and hopes very frequently flow into such prognoses, and of course it can be observed in many cases that the more concrete the prognosis comes across, the more their monstrous interventions of uplifting or depressing feelings people strive for, where possible accurate prognosis. So now he's going into like why he's doing it. The history of events and events chains must at any rate be basically regarded as unforeseeable, which for political praxis means that detailed instructions can hardly be given with regard to future action, and this action must, in the end, be left the tact of judgment, as a great theorist of war formulated. So he's basically of the political realist school, like von Clausewitz, to say that there is a number of like indeterminacies and black swan events. So when dealing with geopolitical or even domestic politics, you really can't like basically theory work to have like these hard and fast theories that you can place upon them. So a future-oriented description of the situation today, which would want to take the place of the thankless attempt at predication of events, must emphasize the aspects of relative historical factors to which it credits event constituting force. It must therefore track down the particularity of the situation, and if historical continuities exist, it must make the transformations of the constants found comprehensible. So this is basic conceptual history. You have to like really look at the context of things. And if there is any historical continuities, or if there is things that do span across time that you can take as a sort of lesson for current situations, the historical continuities of planetary politics extends over the entire new times, i.e. such politics has been taking cohesive and continuous form since the age of the great discoveries and in the course of the formation of the colonial system in the world market. In fact, planetary politics is only now coming into being in a real sense. So it took all of that historical development to the age of information to determine a truly global politics. So in former times, there were indeed also the representation of a comprehensive oikoumime. How do you say that, Prude?
I guess economy.
Economy, yeah. However, in political reality, even the form of great empires, The one economy was subdivided into three or more in practice. Relative economies, which hardly did come into contact with one another, or at the most hand had contact through friction on their peripheries. The Roman economy in the end remained radically different to the economy of the Parthians, despite their protracted border struggles, just as the later Arabic and Frankish world, after the violent fixing of the dividing lines between them, had to live for a long time, while existing side by side in also essentially closed political spaces. To say nothing of the Eurasian or American economies, the world historical novum since the 16th century consists in the advent of powers whose relative economy, in practical terms, embrace the whole planet. So now you have a form of political insularity going outwards to where we have this like weird planetary consciousness. And skipping ahead,
and it's fitting that he mentions this, and
Yeah.
that it comes to the information age, because it only is in the information age are we as regular citizens made brutally aware at all times of like the affairs of what's going on in another. Not to do my usual insert McLuhan reference, but I mean, it's literally in Understanding Media that we're now in an age where the white man is like simultaneously aware of what's going on in India, Sub-Saharan Africa, and in Russia all at once. And they force him to care and to conceptualize an understanding of how that affects him in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And so now that you have this greater awareness, this really influences what Kondylis would also say is it also influences your view of history as well and the development of it. And so this is like where conceptual history comes in, to where the sort of like old method of like placing these almost metaphysical categories upon history and upon the current current political situations, that sort of gets thrown out the window for a sort of pragmatics that determines context of what's like actually going on in that time, which historically is hard to determine. But but now that we have this sort of like awareness of what's happening around the globe, now there's sort of like a greater data set from which you can attribute current and even future political events. So politics becomes planetary to the extent that developments in any region of the planet whatsoever can mobilize the forces and readiness to act of interested powers, as no development and no place can be regarded from the outset and forever as uninteresting for certain powers. So now it's like literally like the globe become like anything around the globe has political ramifications in even like domestically. Like the price of tea in China, for instance, that's like usually the go-to example. 2 points must be paid attention here. Firstly, the planetary character of politics does not result from the subordination of political action, urbe et orbe, to certain norms which meet the universal recognition. Rather, things are the other way around. Norms with a universal character, or at least a universal claim, come into being as an ideational concomitance of political phenomenon of planetary range and aim at regulating the relations between planetary powers, at least in times, which in accordance with the general feeling on each and every respective occasion are normal. So now he's saying that it's not that you can like really universalize laws, but rather it's the other way around. It's like classic realist type of stuff, where it's like actually the situation on the ground will determine these heuristic laws of how politics actually functions. And so this is what he's hammering home at. It's not that you have an ideal that you're then going to expand throughout the world, but rather the world will come to your idea set and influence what you believe in terms of what the parameters of a political given phenomenon politically will actually manifest as. So, secondly, planetary politics does not mean that all nations, peoples, or states actively shape planetary events to their entire extent. Of course, that's impossible because, like, I don't think, like, Burkina Faso is going to, like, really determine the events of what happens in America or China, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Or that all those who actively participate in the shaping of these events do it equally or in the same way. Planetary politics, however, creates a situation in which all sides are forced to see that that they fix their political behavior more or less directly or indirectly, while being minded of the correlation of forces on the whole planet. That they're rather a node in that political ecosystem that is now worldwide.
Yeah, know your lane.
Exactly. We're all on the same prison planet together. Although the radius of action of powers is very different, great powers, which as active subjects of the planetary politics lives up to the name planetary powers, must in any event always act by taking into account the planetary situation and the planetary consequences of their action. But even powers which, because of their geopolitical and economic potential, can pursue an active foreign policy only at the regional level, must keep in mind the planetary constellations, conjecture, at least insofar as one or more planetary powers has vital interests in the region in question. So, I mean, that sounds
very structural realism.
Yeah, like Mersheimer.
And well, so, I'd say Kenneth Waltz more than Mearsheimer.
Yeah. The friendly or the friendly or inimical, but how do you say that? Inimical, yeah, but unavoidable contact between middle and small powers with planetary powers constitutes the way the middle and small powers participates in planetary events. The prevailing world situation is reflected in every region of the planet in the constellation which arises from the present theory of planetary powers, as well as from the interrelating actions and reactions of local powers. The result is that given the relatively high density of planetary politics, there is hardly any international politics at the regional level without planetary aspects and implications. That's basically exploit their advantage in existing relations. Yeah, so there you go.
Just setting the stage for how traditional IR should work.
Yeah, and so he talks about the Greek city-states. So let's jump ahead a little bit. Particular informatics and telecommunications has made the planet smaller, mutual dependence greater, and cooperation more necessary. Enhance understanding. Undoubtedly, planetary politics has today attained a density which knows no precedents and analogies for the distant or recent past. Nevertheless, this density is not simply due to the automatic effects of technology, but interrelates with social historical developments in which technical development, for its part, is embedded. Not just any network of interhuman relations bring forth such technology, and not just any network of interhuman relations, i.e. society, in the formation can be influenced by such technology. So he's not saying that only global telecommunication technologies has influenced this, but there are a number of social technologies which has necessitated the need for a truly planetary understanding of the political. So he's saying that, like, there are certain developments within empires, for instance, that influence how we view relations with other powers and with other peoples. But also technology does play an immense role in that facilitation as well.
Well, it facilitates our perception, so it has to.
Yeah. Density takes place in turning point in which marks changes social. Because we do not mean so only certain developments in the interior political entities set in motion, striving for power and foreign policies as such in the general, which would fail to appear if said striving for powers bearers did not want to, though these developments consolidate their position in regard to domestic policy. Domestic policy indeed conditions the means and methods of foreign policy. It determines who takes foreign policy in hand. In the process, foreign policy is also used in terms of the goal of domestic policy. The necessity of driving foreign policy towards the aim of preservation and of consolidation of power of the political entity in question inside of each and every respective relevant political universe is, however, preceded by the decision over the concrete bearer of responsibility as regards foreign policy. And in this respect, the necessity of exercising foreign policy remains as independent constant. Cannot serve it other through the means by methods which are typical socio-political essence, regardless of the reasons which bring into being the striving of power for power and foreign policy as such in the general. This striving of power finds expression in forms which correspond to socio-political character of the political subject. So this is a very good point. He's saying that foreign policy is largely the determinant determined by domestic policy, but also by the character of the individual and also collective subject of a particular power. But nowadays, what we have is this weird sort of reality in which a lot of powers essentially negate domestic policy or negate the sort of character of the people that are influenced by those powers in favor of like a solely like foreign policy orientated persuasion, right? So
well, that, and also that it's not even based upon, say, like the realistic. Well, you would say that it's not realistic, but
right.
You know, the argument that there's like it's the schools of like foreign policy thought. So you have liberalism, you have constructivism, realism, Marxism, or systems-based theories, and so what those to me kind of inform this sort of discussion, because it's just like, okay, well, clearly what we have here are a form of foreign policy and foreign affairs that are adamantly for, you know, ignoring the facts on the ground. Like liberalism is a great example of this. Like, you know, what often gets called like liberal international or something along those lines. It's pretty damning in that respect. And that's what you have to work with, even though you shouldn't. It doesn't match the facts on the ground.
No, exactly. But then, I mean, that was sort of like from Bush onwards. I mean, Obama did bring back like the awareness of like domestic insular politics, but like from Bush onwards, you do have like this weird fixation on foreign policy and not really hashing it out. And Joseph, the title of it's the introductory chapter to Planetary Politics After the Cold War. You can find the PDF for free if you just Google Kondylis, Planetary Politics After the Cold War. So let's jump ahead a little bit. How long is this chapter? I forget how long this chapter. Let me see.
I think it's like 56 pages.
Yeah, but like we're trying to get to the meat here. So
I keep going.
He talks about the history of like the colonial system, and how planetary politics becomes what he calls like the density of politics. And he sort of like goes through like the progressive steps towards a planetary politics that starts to be realized in the 16th century till today. So then he talks about the Industrial Revolution. Now becomes denser only because modern industry needs and creates much greater possibilities of communication, while it sometimes awakens or intensifies the need of exchange at many levels, but just as much as the modern state, which consistently puts aside the remnants of a state-based society, makes the administrative means available for organization of larger territories. So yeah, this is basically like technologies of power increasing after the Industrial Revolution. You've
got your force multiplier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So here he says we are here dealing with the classic epoch of imperialism, which not only by chance coincides with the heyday of European liberalism. The planetary powers are in one or another form liberal and imperialistic at the same time, because only through the liberal capitalistic unleashing of the industrial economy, as well as through the creation of bourgeois states, did imperialism gain not only the impetus, but also the instruments of its unfolding. Social groups with which at the high level the bourgeoisie had to now and then share political power, e.g. noblemen who as military officers in the colonies sought a substitute for their lost or endangered social position in the homeland, and at the low-level possessionless strata in which their country of origin could not hope for a rosy future, of course participated in the imperialist undertaking. In spite of the, for these reasons, interrelated general popularity of imperialism in the interior of planetary powers, imperialism remains a bourgeois liberal venture, both as its driving force as well in historical and structural respect, that is seen not least in the parallelism between the internal structure of the liberal capitalistic states and the structure of imperialistic systems in toto. The separation and relation between ruling and colonial peoples inside of the imperialistic system corresponded with the separation and relation between bourgeois and proletarian in the liberal capitalistic state. So here, you have to realize something. He sounds like a Marxist, but Kondylis is viewing the development of the capitalist and liberal system from a non-Marxist lens. He's merely stating the reality of it. He's merely stating that the development of imperialism is structured around the liberal capitalistic system, the way that you have certain the stratification of society in sort of like the bourgeois and proletarian system. that gets mimicked to a greater degree as the relation of these colonized subjects and the greater homeland powers. It's the same system. And liberal capitalism is the accelerant to which planetary politics in the imperial age really kicks off from. It's kind of Landian in a weird way. Like capitalism is the engine of planetary politics. And those very like liberal social relations in a capitalistic democracy. That gets like reverberated throughout the whole world in the imperial system. So subjects and objects of planetary politics, both aforementioned phases, was fundamental functioning of the planetary system, especially at the different or distance, was sanctioned under international law, and moreover was underpinned by arguments taken from the philosophy and history of culture. Planetary politics was shaped by the planetary powers deep into until almost the middle of the 20th century, where the rest of the powers constituted to this or that extent the objects of a politics which was dictated by the planetary powers as sovereign subjects. So now you have, after the age of colonialism, you have the fading of empires. Now you still have the awareness of the driving engine of the planet is really these large powers. And so the rest, the global South and the global East, are still of an immense concern. So maybe you can read onward.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. This state of affairs has changed at an increasingly quicker tempo in the course of our century, and indeed in the same sense and in the framework of the same world historical process as in the interior of advanced nations, which as a rule also constituted the planetary powers. Mass democracy gradually displaced oligarchic liberalism, that is, the principle of equality through the affluence for all, was substantialized, advancing democratization put in place of a more or less closed oligarchy, the game of the open elite, and in place of the fixed hierarchies as in principle unlimited social mobility, the dominant ideology took an individualistic, egalitarian, and at the same time value pluralistic character. Through the massive appearance of new nations and states, legally equal amongst themselves, planetary politics now gains a density and mobility analogous to the density and mobility of mass societies or mass democracies, which followed oligarchic liberalism. For the first time in human history, a true world society comes into being, which is indeed characterized by considerable actual inequalities and heterogeneities, i.e. non-uniformities. Nevertheless, on the other hand, this world society professes in principle equality of its members and recognizes the same rights for them. Just as the interior of a developed mass democracy, so too inside of the world society, equality has not been realized materially in an all-around way, yet is guaranteed under international law as well as as well as at the level of declarations, and is constantly propagated racist and other similar teachings which gave their blessing to colonialistic and imperialistic relations of domination, and even before the First World War, were all over Europe and much more self-evident than what one wants to admit today, are now frowned upon and are suspended, and on the one hand by universalistic anthropological and ethical principles, and on the other hand by favorable appreciation of various cultures, their uniqueness, and their contribution to universal culture.
So here we have
global homo.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You have like sort of but you have to look at the sort of like libertarian of foreign policy and the great powers giving way not to an older iteration of, I guess, what you could call classical liberal, sort of like, where there is like a semi-aristocracy in which people of affluence, they determine the policy of the day. You have like the great powers within a nation. Progressively, as time goes on, you have an individualistic approach to politics. You have, instead of an oligarchy run by the few, you have mass democratic politics, but you still have the inkling of sort of like a transnational power. But the beginning of what you could call transnational progressivism, or what Kondylis calls planetary politics, comes about from this egalitarian liberalization. But it's not because, and this is where Kondylis is like a hard-nosed realist and a conceptual historian. It's not because of like this wholesome Chungus, we discovered equality and anti-racism, and we just want to give all the peoples of the world with like a rising tide raises all ships. No, those things are a social technology that creates a global apparatus of power. Non-racism is anti-racism is a social technology.
These are merely political formulas in which we use to enforce our own rules-based system.
Exactly. The rules-based order, quote unquote. So even before the First World War, all your bunch were self-evident, frowned upon or suspended. But that wasn't because of like the sort of liberal history that people like Rawls and even contemporary tards like Ann Applebaum or whoever, or like even Barack Obama himself. It's not that like the world wholesome chungist itself into like liberal, like world liberalism. These things were very, they have very manipulative origins to Kondylis. But notice how he's giving a value neutral impression of the development of liberal capitalism, because he has this other work where he basically shreds Marxism to pieces. I don't know if it's translated into English. I think it is. But he's not a Marxist by any stretch of the means. So yeah, read on, Prude. Here's a very spicy chapter right here.
But here we go. After the collapse of classical imperialism of the former planetary powers, which projected the liberal separation between bourgeois and proletarian within the world of nations, now the underdeveloped countries were no longer looked upon as ignorant children who needed the help, who needed the wise guardianship of the white man, but rather those in need, or as inferior partners to whom the same prospects of advancement as the former proletarians in the industrial nations must be given. While putting those principles into force, in which the interior of the mass advanced democracies had already found practical application at the international level, it is less expected that the lower strata of world society, through affluence and democratization, will become integrated with the higher strata. And that finally the planet, seen as a whole, will resemble a giant market and at the same time a giant social state in which the resources and riches could be redistributed in favor of those who have hitherto been disadvantaged. Yeah, sorry, Darren A. Smoglu, but nations are still going to fail.
Yeah.
However, the leading powers did not expect a global social balancing out from such a direct redistribution, which would bring with it unwelcome and in the long term perhaps pointless sacrifices for the rich, but rather from fast economic growth in the, quote, underdeveloped countries. Just like in the advanced mass democracies, the affluence of the broad masses came about more through the creation of new wealth, thanks to the development of technology and rising labor productivity, rather than through drastic redistribution of wealth already in existence. Growth in the until now weak regions of the world economy seems to incidentally be precisely an advantage for the strong national economies, so that became the same process that might be repeated on a world scale as in the Western mass democracies, in which the social in which the social rise of the worker as consumer in the long term boosted industry, although industry had to in the process bear some of the load of the welfare state while gnashing its teeth.
Yeah, exactly, like China. Like that's like
also it's like simply
a
saying
non-democratic industrial middle class society, or trying to be a middle class society.
Well, the other
although
thing
that's not really true, because the Chinese aren't exactly middle class yet. But
but the other thing too to keep in mind with this is that he's also kind of more or less flat out implying that you are not going to get your I don't want to say utopianism here, but like you're not going to get you're not going to raise these people out of wealth like we have. It's just not going to happen. Instead, what is going to happen is client states, and what we're also going to just repeat. We're just going to get neocolonialism, as so many people like to criticize the Chinese for doing the same thing so many of us did just centuries prior. Like, exactly. Oh, you came in and you localized and you developed industry. Although the difference between Western imperialism or colonialism is very clear. Like we did go there to live. We did go there to expand and have like actual infrastructure set up. I mean, the Chinese have done
them how to eat with utensils.
Yeah. Whereas clearly that's not happening.
Yeah,
on the same degree. The Chinese don't care. They're there, and they're far more realistic because they are not burdened by what has been, but they are not burdened by the egalitarian social notions of race and democracy. You know, like the famous.
You realize you only need to teach like one or two Africans to speak Chinese, can't?
And even like, then they can't.
All of them. Yeah.
Like that great video of like the Chinese guy explaining that you people just can't do anything.
from Empire of Dust. Yeah.
He's just like, oh, you guys are just actually dumb. I can't run a business here.
It's funny because I remember the top comment in the YouTube clip was the guy had the weight of all of his nation on his back. You could just see on his face the weight of all of the Congo on his face, like just getting shredded by this Chinese functionary.
So true.
Oh my God. The following aspect of the complex analogy between mass democracy and the world economy must now be particularly emphasized. Just inside the former, so too inside the latter, the behavior of collective subjects is determined less through actual and apparently difficult to remedy inequality and more through the in principle recognized right to equality, and indeed not merely equality of the formal legal rights, but equality of enjoyment or pleasure. So you can all consume the same slop. You're not equal, though, but you can consume the same slop on a planetary level. And this is what Aldous Huxley also said in his talk to Berkeley, Brave New World Revisited, right? Like, you're going to get behavioral freedoms, but you're not going to get actual representation. It's really so impossible because, it's like really impossible because, the average like micronation in Africa or in Asia, it's like compared to like China, India, America, Britain, like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it's not really, it's always going to be unequal. Unless you have like some weirdo futurist Star Trek fantasy where it's like the Confederation of Planets or whatever, it's not going to happen. You know, the Earth is not going to be the Earth. It's so Kondylis is saying like, but here's the thing with Kondylis, he's not saying that this is a bad thing. There's no like moral judgment. He's just saying like that's how it is.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh my God, you gave people the pretense to legal rights, but you pulled the wool over their eyes. It's like he doesn't care about that. That's not how politics works, ladies and gentlemen. It's like you got to put your big boy pants on. You know what I mean? Like you can't just like whine and cry about, oh, there's not real representation. It's like it's impossible. But anyways, the solemn recognition of this right, and even if only at the level of the declarations of the principle, creates the horizons of expectation which inspire long-term action. Although in the everyday life of realpolitik, consideration of the actual inequalities in power and wealth continues to normally be the decisive factor. Nevertheless, inequality is from now on only the reality which one must take into account, not a principle by which one must submit. That is why the appearance of the lower strata of the world society in the international stage becomes all the more self-assured, and the boundaries between the subjects and the objects of planetary politics becomes increasingly fluid. The just dramatic and epoch-making change becomes manifest if we contemplate the status of quite a few Asian and Arab states in planetary politics 50 years ago in comparison to today. It started not by chance with the seizure of power of the Bolsheviks in order to take worldwide dimensions during the Cold War and then become irreversible. In their endeavor to mobilize the colored and colonial peoples against the capitalistic metropolises, there you go. The communists have substantially contributed to the spreading of today's prevailing principles of equality, and at the same time they force through their competition the camp of the former colonial powers to gradually adopt the same vocabulary and the same positions. So yeah, whenever like a MAGA communist or some like weird tanky that doesn't want to admit to being right wing, when he like or some like weird Nazball person, tell them that actually gay race communism was always a thing. It was always a thing. In my book, my forthcoming book, I talk about this mural in this like far off Croatian train terminal that's essentially like global rainbow coalition type of stuff. It was always there. But what he's saying though is that this is very true, but it's important. He's saying that you have this relation between the lower strata and the higher strata. No longer is there a colonial principle of order and rank. No longer is inequality a principle of the system. That you are a British person, for example, and that you are inherently you have inherent rights as opposed to the colonial subjects in Indonesia or in South Africa or in Kenya or wherever, right? But now inequality is seen as an externality that is like this tragic byproduct of actual politics. But that shift is not, again, that shift in thinking is not for like a wholesome Chungus, like global equality purpose, but rather it makes those relations between lesser and greater powers more fluid. It's for an instrumental purpose by capital, by liberal global politics, rather than a moral purpose. That's what he's saying. He's eschewing any moralization. He's saying that by bringing in these lesser powers, those relations can then be taken up to a greater degree from the global South and the global West or whatever. And now those things can become more fluid. So it's not that we just gave these people rights. We say that, inequality is this tragic byproduct of the global system that must be gotten rid of. It's a different form of social technology. It's a different form of political social techniques, rather than like this moral arc development of the right side of history where morality in society goes up in a line. That's nonsense. It's a changing of praxis on a global scale.
Yeah.
So when libtards try to tell you like this moral development of history, tell them that was also a social technology that was specifically designed. And so here we have the recognition that when the Soviets spread this like post-colonial ideology to these different peoples, it wasn't because they like inherently loved these people. It was because it was for a specific geopolitical purpose against the capitalistic West. That's what it was for. So let's move on.
Just like the roots alone for... America did participate in anti-colonialism as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Kondylis gets into Rhodesia or anything in here, but Kissinger, for all of his flaws, one of the biggest ones, of course, being like, oh, well, we should pursue like this like anti-racist policy towards Rhodesia and South Africa. And that's what we need to do to move forward on these issues. And of course, we kind of know the consequences of that. So we've now allowed democracy and the civil rights aspects to now be the tools in which we pursue international politics. And that's going to be the way that it goes forward in the West for now until that order is challenged. Or it stops being more importantly, until it stops being useful. But as I think we've noticed, that it doesn't matter how many years it's been since like apartheid or whatever, that kind of revolutionary model to bash your head again against this invisible, proletariat, or this invisible bourgeois, or in this case, like just, the minority, the whites.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Like, it's got to go. We're going to milk that cow until it's, dead. And by dead, I mean all keeps dead.
Reiterating itself. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And to some extent, I hate to give like Fanon credit for being the disgusting person that he was. But like, they'll inhabit the colonial attitude themselves. They have no problem doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kissinger sowed the seeds of American anti-Zionism in 1970. No, American anti-Zionism, it goes way back to I think GDF had a video like that. Was it George C. Marshall, or who was it that opposed recognizing the state of Israel in that committee? Was it George C. Marshall, or was it another guy?
For the creation of Israel in 1948?
Yeah, the committee in America, in like during the Truman administration, yeah.
I don't know. Marshall sounds right. He was eventually in government, so yeah, that sounds right. But I don't know. I'd have to look it up. The thing that a lot of people...
there's a GDF video on it recently.
Well, I don't watch this stuff, but I do know, however, that one of the big issues when it came to like say America's relationship to Israel, at least under the time that what was it? The time in which Kissinger was still doing a lot of policy work, was of course saying America would not help Russian Jews immigrate to Israel.
Yeah,
that was his thing. It's not a national security interest.
Well, even back in the 40s, they recognized that they're like, okay, Israel is always going to get us into foreign entanglements, and so that's why you had like a lot of real realists in the Truman administration that said, okay, like that's not. But they didn't win, though. Of course, I mean that's the rest.
No,
is history,
they
right?
did not.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Kissinger definitely was like Zionist skeptic. I mean, he wasn't like pursuing his own ethnic interests. He was. I mean, he was pretty even-handed. Like he was pretty good at separating his own upbringings and identity from, that particular issue in the Middle East. So, but I mean, of course, like, Anthony Bourdain, when I visit Cambodia and I have this amazing food,
I just hate Henry Kissinger.
I just hate him so much. Look what he did to Cambodia. Yeah, but then look what Pol Pot did to Cambodia after Kissinger. So funny how Anthony Bourdain didn't mention, that, right? When
of course not. Left. Why would you?
Yeah, the killing fields and the mountains of bodies and the oppression. Yeah, it's I mean, Pol Pot was a misunderstood figure. I guess
he's a sensitive young man.
Yeah, he's a sensitive young man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he wanted to liberate students. He wanted to like get back at the teachers, like all sensitive young men.
Yeah,
yeah, like it's. I'm sure like Bourdain's having that conversation with Kissinger in hell right now. So.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's terrible. It's true. Anyways,
wow, what's that?
How's the weather down there, boys?
Lord have mercy.
Oh man, that was my favorite Simpsons bit from Krusty. But all my critics are in hell. It's like, he taps his clown foot. How's the weather down there, boys? Anyways,
all the food is. I think Anthony Bourdain in hell is just Enoch. If you're listening to this one, you need to write a short story about Anthony Bourdain in hell, but the devil is disguised, or he's taken on the appearance of Guy Fieri.
That's his ultimate. Like that's the ultimate hell. Like Hell's Ironic Punishment Division is basically Anthony Bourdain taking on Guy Fieri and like going to drive-in and dive slop and like reviewing that over and over again. Not like his fancy couture restaurants. Like that's the ultimate hell for
so
Anthony
true.
Bourdain. Anyways, world interest is suffice in order the same object can become for other side a much sought after aim as well. The immobility of both camps inside the existing borders during the Cold War, despite some change in the periphery, was a consequence of the atomic deterrence. In any case, it's not comparable to the division of the planet into spheres of influence. The collapse of communism and the end of the Cold War necessarily increase the material and he says increase because I believe he wrote this right after the collapse of the wall. When did Kondylis die?
That's a great question. I can look that up for
you.
Yeah,
mid-90s, I think, right?
Or
2000.
Like that,
yeah. I think the early 2000s.
He died in 1998.
Okay, so yeah, the mid-90s. The collapse of communism and the end of the Cold War necessarily increased the material and ideational expectations, which thrive on basis of the generally recognized material principle of equality. Because the victor of the Cold War, the mass democratic West, seems to show a path to the future, which after the disappearance of the great adversary is the only possible and only promising path. And notice what, for all of you Curtis heads out there, Adam Curtis heads, this is essentially hypernormalization that the Soviets experienced at the end, and now we're kind of experiencing.
Yeah.
Unless Donald J. Trump gets elected again. We'll see what happens. The coupling of freedom and affluence, which the West propagated in its political ideological struggle against communism, increasingly gained, as it were, the status of apodictic evidence. And since even where there is no political freedom in the Western sense, the solution to economic problems in the framework of what is politically allowed on each and every respective occasion is left to the free activity of subjects as economic actors. The confirmation of the Western model through the manifest failure of the planned economy seems to have forever put aside doubts and unfruitful temptations And in this respect, this confirmation seems to have had a liberating effect on the mind, notice not really, at the same time as effective pointing the way forward. Nevertheless, one would be evading the main matter if one did not pose the elementary question as to why precisely such concerns and problems have moved to the center of planetary politics. Still more concretely, this same question can be formulated as follows. What is the social, historical, and political identity of the collective subjects which must connect their political activity with such objectives, regardless of what they may otherwise foster as national or geopolitical aspirations? As far as it concerns the industrially highly developed Western countries, it cannot be stressed enough that they achieved the coupling of freedom and affluence, to which they attributed their victory in the Cold War, not as liberal but as mass democratic social formations, as they left behind oligarchic liberalism through the process of democratization and bridged the gap between bourgeois and proletarian, through mass consumption and social mobility, which in the end did away with both the bourgeoisie as well as the proletarian as clearly outlined sociological types. The countries which wanted to follow the path of the West do not have in mind bourgeois liberalism as an ideal, but exactly mass democracy, and for that matter do not have at their disposal either socially divisive bourgeoisie capable of political domination or corresponding political traditions. Should they therefore ever approach the West, when it still happens, then it will happen only at the level of mass democracy. So these nations, here you can see the influence on Paul Gottfried. It's very apparent that basically it's not a moral thing. He's saying that, well, when you get rid of bourgeois liberalism that still had order and rank, that still had a bourgeoisie, that still had an aristocratic or oligarchic character, that then when you go into mass democratic politics, this becomes an accelerant of these global relations. It's a way of the West basically winning over communism, which was a closed society. So here you have like the triumphalism of the open society by people like Karl Popper. But what Kondylis is saying is that it's not like this victory that all of a sudden humanity became enlightened and we're in mass democracy. It's more that it became an effective means of power as opposed to a closed society. But also when it comes to these peripheral nations, their elites are not bourgeois elites. They always are going to be developed under the auspices of mass democratic politics. Their elites will be different because they did not develop the same bourgeois and proletarian classical liberalism that the West had developed for centuries. Rather, they're basically creating a democratic elite from scratch. And so this is how Paul Gottfried would then later come in when he talks about after liberalism, that on the global scale, you have this development of a liberal elite that is then beholden, kind of like old colonial powers, to the elites and the power players in the West. And now in China and so forth. But China's different. It's complicated because they're not like a democratic power. But
no, but
you
I
have
mean,
any thoughts on this, Prude? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's kind of interesting to look at this from like a Deleuzian perspective, because like what is Kondylis saying is that the control society has won out. Just a different model of that control. Like has the control society has won over the sort of the discipline, the disciplinarian, the control and command format in which communism and sort of the socialist Soviet system was under. The idea that you are in control, that you have freedom. This is the way in which we are going to perceive politics moving forward. And it doesn't matter that they believe in, like let's say capital L liberal democracy. They don't. They care about control. They care about the idea of being in charge. They care about empowerment, a political formula in which they can enrich themselves. And that's it.
Yeah, basically.
And so I find that to be the most interesting. It's like, oh, what do I have here? Oh, I have a politics that is, again, like you see this about elections. Like, oh, well, this election is so important because of XYZ reason. And it's just like, well, is it though?
Yeah.
It is if you want to keep your particular proxy in power. Yes, it absolutely is. That's how the game's going to get played.
But it's very funny how he has almost like a cynical view of the development of like a planetary liberal democracy, or like the notion of it, that like the ditching of inequality as a principle rather than like just a tragic byproduct, like that is like for very like mercenary ends rather than like this sort of like moralization of politics that comes from even like places like Immanuel Kant with perpetual peace, where we recognize each other, we give each other the the law. It's like that's sort of like an ideal, but Kondylis saying like that's just another way of shoring up power. It's really just,
like the whole dream of universal law, that's gone. And with good reason. Like, reality sets in. Okay, well, we can have democracy. We don't need to be like the old world orders. But at the same time, we also have to deal with the fact that I exist in a society in which, I can have more control. How? Well, it's more democratic. I can easily sway votes that way. I can do what the Labor Party is doing for Kamala Harris. I can import 100 or so operatives to come in, advisors, Democratic strategists, etc., to tell you exactly how this game gets played. And it works pretty damn well now, doesn't it?
Yeah. And here he says, said goodbye to agrarian patriarchalism and agrarian traditionalism. And if they want to have a socio-historical position in the modern world, then this can only be the threshold of democracy. So there you have it. Paul Gottfried also talks about this. Kondylis accurately assesses that the buy-in of an advanced society, the buy-in of participating in modern democratic power politics, is essentially getting rid of your own traditions. That's what it is. Getting rid of pastoralism, getting rid of any sort of like agrarian-based collectivist system, getting rid of those values. Now it becomes okay, now if you want to subscribe to power politics, you basically have to become a modern democratic state. You have to become part of global LGBT CIA race communism. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean that's the game that has to get played here. The shedding of the old world comes into the new. The mass man evolves into having a say. That search for validation now means that I can broadcast my regionalism and my nationalism, and these currents now can. They must. It's funny here. A closer examination of traditionalist currents can show how they must exactly through a radicalization of tradition turn movements of modernization if they wish to remain politically relevant. So even traditionalism, or what sometimes it's called neo-trad or whatever, gets evolved for mass politics, like remigration now. Like all of a sudden that's
now like what Bowden called revolutionary tradition, or like reactionary modern. Like there was a great book, Reactionary Moderns. Maybe we could cover it one day.
We should one day.
Yeah. Patriarchal traditional elements still in existence are not historically decisive, even if they quantitatively predominate in certain regions of the world. The colonialism of the imperialistic powers have already inaugurated the transformation of patriarchally clan-like organized societies into mass societies, while this colonialism subjected formerly autonomous groups to unified administration in order to eventually force them into the melting pot of states with arbitrary drawn borders. There you have it. The destruction of traditional sources of power in order to facilitate mass democratization, which then individualizes people, which then buys you into the global system as a way of life. That was to destroy the older power structures. It wasn't to liberate women in Afghanistan or whatever. It wasn't for gay marriage or whatever. It's about the destruction of older bases of power that then the globalized system can then creep into these local powers and transform their elites into mass democratic constituencies. And so here you have the radicalization of traditionalism in a form of like the political right that also has to use the tools of globalization to its advantage. Kondylis he wrote this in the mid 90s, but this startlingly comes close to our current reality. As
yes.
a lot of texts that we've read from the past in the show.
And this one being the most contemporary so far.
Yeah. But does that not sound like the modern reality that we live in now? Like, it's incredible. Yeah. So,
and this is, I feel like, I don't know, but I mean, this feels very similar to what Sam Francis said about just sort of like leftist revolutions, was just that, oh, well, you have to, by mass commodifying, you've essentially now created the easiest way to take a society's traditions, its peoples, its races, whatever, and you have now effectively deracinated the population. And in doing so, you have essentially created the most pliable way to uproot them and to control them. And by also essentially replace them.
Yeah, because then become cogs in a global system. It really doesn't matter to the, So the population explosion and even the enemy dominating large parts of the world have, for their part, forcibly contributed to the massification of traditional societies. To that were also added the social consequences of communistic domination in many countries, in which earlier, in many cases, still pre-capitalistic structures were violently destroyed, i.e. the existing social units were atomized, smashed or broken up or fragmented into individuals. Then the individuals were incorporated into political and economic or administrative mass organizations without the consideration for traditional affiliations and loyalties. Exactly. 100%. And even communism did this, by the way. Communism had its own social techniques. The Soviet Union had its own way of like their own version of it. But then, of course, the capitalistic Western version, that won out, though. That was a more effective means of deracinating people than even communism. So, Prude, if you can read on. I mean, we could probably jump ahead after this.
The unstable mass societies which came from this long and many-sided massification process are confronted with both great questions in which the advanced democracies of the West seem to have more or less satisfactorily solved. First, it is a question of democratization, namely the inevitable participation of mobile and insistent masses in political and social events. Insofar, this participation takes place through granting and exercising of political rights, which are frequently understood as human rights and are demanded as such, and such said rights should not be judged ethically abstractly, but looked at as the practical means which cause the constant expansion of the circle from which the ruling elite can be recruited in order to supersede the old oligarchies. Because such rights, e.g. freedom of speech, do not first see the light of day through democratization in the pre-democratic state of affairs, i.e., if you can scroll down.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. I.e. situation, their exercise was merely restricted to the circle of those ruling, and their transference of, to others concretely means that all the more people may become able to rule or announce claims to domination. It is an essential and primary interrelation which the massification process, democratization, even takes place in mass societies which hardly know or recognize political rights in the Western sense, so that in them political activity must unfold through other channels. Caesar's a hominis novi, and here take care of democratization, who disregard patriarchal oligarchies and put aside autonomous clan-based rule in order to distribute power and the domination to their followers, as well as mass movements, irrespective of what color, which derive their loyalties partly from charismatic leaders, partly from universal principles, before whom individuals feel equal amongst one another in their common subjection. Basically, post-colonial. I was going to say post-colonial democracies.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, like even in post-colonial democracy, like Julius Nyerere. Or who was another one? Count Dankula did a video on him recently.
I don't know off the top of my head.
He was like a literal Nazball leader in Africa. No, but then of course you have from charismatic leaders populism, or partly from universal principles. I mean, you have like, okay, Obama pretending was that, although he tried to be a charismatic leader. Now you have like Trumpism. You have various other sort of like, I mean, European and Canadian and like Anglosphere politics, apart from America, fits this bill much better because we have like a post-political reality where the managerial system governs.
Yes, but if you're in the Anglosphere, what are you doing right now? You're adopting the Americanization of politics.
Yeah, true.
Like both Bernier and Polivio, however you pronounce it, they're all doing the same thing. They're all acting like TPUSA.
Or like Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or what would be the Australian equivalent? Do they have like a guy like that?
I don't know. I would need to look at that closer or ask our Australian friends if there's an equivalent.
I have to ask Barack Obama.
Yeah, we would.
They have a lot of Wignats though, but that's different. That's not like
well, so does America, just not in that. I don't think in such a way that they do.
Yeah. They're much more tolerated in Australia in some ways. But I don't know, it's really weird though, because the government is quite libertarian in Australia, kind of like in Canada, but they do have like pound for pound more active members on the far right than even especially in Canada or in, I mean, there's a few people in Canada, I shouldn't say that, but like America's different though, because there is like a kind of semi-integration of the right wing. And I mean, Trump has allowed for that, but not in like the degree that like, I don't know. I mean, America's kind of all over the place though. I don't know. It's like, would you even consider like Richard Spencer a white nationalist nowadays?
I don't know what you would call
question,
Richard Spencer these days. I would consider him a liberal internationalist. I guess that would be the closest thing I would call him.
Yeah, but I guess like he thinks that like liberal internationalism is the best system for white people. So I don't know.
Well,
it's like
when it was colonial, maybe. Like I would call Teddy Roosevelt like a liberal internationalist, but like I'm talking like 19th, 20th, early 20th century liberalism, where he believed that mass democracy of like European nations was like the best way to preserve their people. Like Teddy Roosevelt, I want to say TR, like TR Hudson, but no, like Teddy Roosevelt was just very adamantly on board with this sort of paternalistic, patriarchal form of imperialism because he knew that this would help keep. You got to keep can't let the colored masses take over the world.
Yeah, he literally said that.
Like the liberalism of that time was telling the United States Military Academy at West Point to read Lothrop's Stoddard. Like we were like, so yeah, sure. Like you could argue, as Spencer wants to, that like, oh yeah, liberal internationalism is the great way for a particular group of people. Yes, but that is a huge caveat. What kind of liberalism are we talking about?
No, but this is what Kondylis is saying here, is that liberal internationalism, that became explicitly individualized, and that it became like a way of breaking traditions rather than preserving them. Whereas like I think Spencer, I mean, he probably has read Kondylis. It's just that I don't know his workaround.
Well, we mentioned Ron Paul earlier, but let's not forget where Richard was at in 2008.
I can't believe that photo of Richard Spencer next to Ron Paul. Like that's like,
yeah, he did the introduction.
There was an account called Ron Paul's Racist Newsletter Griper. That was funny. So I think he's still around. Yeah, Ron Paul's Racist Newsletter Griper. But then like Ron Paul, like during his campaign, he had to do like the anti-racism thing. Like he talked about like that black couple that he helped deliver their kid, like when the hospital refused them.
Oh yeah,
Ron Paul's a gynecologist. Yeah.
Yeah, and his son became an ophthalmologist.
What's that?
He's an eye doctor.
Oh, he's an eye doctor?
Yeah, Rand Paul went to medical school, or he has an MD.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they both treated eyes, but different eyes. I guess. That's a stupid joke.
Yeah, but it made me smile.
Different form of eyes. Anyways, let's skip ahead a little bit. Here we go. Democratization, economic growth are highly technicized, i.e. advanced technical basis, constitute the bridge for the transition of a mass society to a mass democracy of the Western type. The latter, of course, arose from a mass society as well, which in the course of the Industrial Revolution conclusively destroyed the feudal patriarchal Europe and drove people in herds into cities. So if you want to talk about how the old noblesse oblige, the old ancient regime was destroyed, mass urbanization was a key decisive factor. This pre-democratic mass society therefore had coincided to a great extent with the rule of oligarchic liberalism. Therein lies the important and for the future perhaps decisive difference between Western development and the course of things in most of the other societies in which the massification process is not carried out in those forms in which the West sets the course for a more or less painless transition to modern mass democracy. So all these other powers throughout the world, they basically have to speed run what we have in the West been developing for multiple centuries.
Which they can't do.
Which they cannot do, exactly.
Both for structural, biological, and just outside external pressures.
Yeah, you really can't put mass democracy in a shipping container and like send it to the global south. It's not gonna happen.
Can't. Try as hard as you want.
No, but then the Chinese, for instance, will just find a way around it. They're like, we'll keep.
Well, they never democratized. Like, this was like the great illusion that so many bought onto in the early aughts. Like, I remember when Obama was in office, like, you could go to any bookstore's like current affairs section, and it would be like, when China rules the world, can China democratize? Like, can we work with China?
Magazine, can China democratize?
Yeah, like that was there. And so, like, that was the mainstream discourse that a lot of people were like, oh, well, like, maybe there is a future between us and China where they are kind of more like us. No, clearly not.
Yeah, not going to happen. What they can do is buy Gucci tracksuits. It seems to be enough. No, but that's what Kondylis is saying. That's enough just to buy Gucci tracksuits. So,
thank you, neoliberalism. Very cool.
That was like during the Bosnian War in Sarajevo. Like, you had like the one militiaman jumping with the Nike runners. He's like got a Kalashnikov with Nike runners.
So true.
So true. That's
such a vibe
right there.
Such a vibe.
And he's got like the Soviet surplus camo pants. Like, it's the Gorka camo pants. Like, it's, oh man, bring me back to 1995. Anyways, no, not really. I mean, ethnic cleansing, wars of never mind.
Hey, I've seen this all before.
Do not look up what the White Eagles were doing in that hotel. Don't look it up. Just do not research.
Don't look it up. Do not research. Cognito hazard.
Yeah, exactly. But so here it says the Western argues the liberal class society were gradually brought down through the tempestuous development of technology, the progress in or refinement of the division of labor, social mobility, and mass affluence, and also social mobility. Atomization, i.e. the breaking up or smashing or fragmentation of society into individuals, and social leveling followed these changes and accompanied them and were legitimized, in fact, through reinterpretations, i.e. meta-interpretations of already victorious liberalism. So again, this is where Paul Godfrey got his two liberalisms from. He got it from Kondylis. In most of the other societies, however, social leveling and atomization have long ago spread without being sufficiently offset by technological and economic progress. So now you basically have a mass favelaized people in a pig trough without the sufficient development into being like, rootless cosmopolitan individuals.
Yeah.
Because of that, social leveling and atomization very often set the forces of enemy free, which then have to be contained by totalitarian or authoritarian religious or Caesarist mass movements. Wow. If you really look at post-colonial powers, holy crap. That's exactly what happened. It's what happens nowadays. It's exactly what's happening. So, oh God. Anyways, the discussion already points to the source of possible conflict, the framework of today's planetary politics. A number of observations might think that the unanimity achieved for the time being after the end of the Cold War as regards to the superiority of the Western system and the founded in this unanimity, commonality of objectives will lead to consensus and cooperation. Peaceful coexistence and mutual harmony, however, does not at all result from the commonality of objectives in itself, but from the agreement over which position every side will take up during the pursuit of the common aim and what advantages every side would derive from the common aim's possible realization. In practice, decisive questions diverge. Then the commonality of the aim does not, for instance, contribute to the easing, but precisely to the intensification of the conflicts. And indeed, for the same reason, the butcher is in a state of enmity, not with the fruitier, but with the butcher next door. The commonality of the aim means rivalry over the same resources, over the same spaces, and over the same prizes. So you basically leveled people into the same competition. You basically gave them the means by which they can start, going at each other. Yeah, Gordon's right. This is so prescient. Yeah.
Yeah, very prescient.
Yeah, but you explain. Yeah, you do a little bit, Prude. Like, what would you say to that? Like, it's basically like you're taking people that have no means, have no development.
All this. What Kondylis is just simply describing what took place in his lifetime. This is what your post-colonial regimes look like. This is what happened. Peaceful coexistence doesn't happen. That envisioned idea of harmony, gone. And instead, as we've noticed along and even in America too, in some places, like the majority falls, the pre-established order of these sort of, if you would even call them like racialized oligarchies, are gone. So what becomes and what exists and what remains? Well, like look at like the New York mayoral elections. It's all tribal. It's all tribal.
Yeah, you can't really shake those old affiliations. It's not going to happen. It's just really... We'll go on for a little bit more because we've gone 2 hours and a half, and we have to get.
Let me read this last little section down here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Starting at the commonality. So down just a little down below. The commonality of the aim means rivalry over the same resources, over the same spaces, and over the same prizes. Precisely successes which would have been achieved with Western methods could bring those who are successful both into conflict with the West as well as into conflict with one another. But the absence of such successes could bring about the same effect as well. And in the field of tension or area of conflict between the unavoidability of the objective and the impossibility of its realization, the imponderable or even explosive reactions could be given vent to a sense of historical hopelessness and aggressive disenchantment must overcome nations which would see that they are not in a position of bringing about what, in accordance with a general view, to be expected of anyone who does not want to be a pariah and the leper of the modern world. The emerging universality of the objectives will constitute also in this respect more of a cause of tension than a factor of mutual understanding. This universality cannot be damaged by the fact that every side will apprehend and will realize the universally recognized aims and corresponding values as its concrete power position and situation dictates to it each and every respective occasion. It will not incidentally be a world historical novum of mass democracy is a planetary unfolded social formation, i.e. a social formation of planetary dimensions, has various forms which are due to the different level of development and different conditions of development. In respect to slavery, feudalism, or bourgeois liberalism, it was not any different. So it's essentially that because we're all different, and because that not everyone is at the same level of development, and that cannot be achieved at all, and redistribution is also going to cause the same level of problems, what is inevitable here is conflict. Not just regional conflict between the newly developed states. I mean, take a look at the conflict between the newly independent South Sudan versus North Sudan, the fighting over oil wells, rigs, and resources. But also that means that the international community is involved in the same kind of conflicts as well. And so now everyone becomes a pawn of the same powers that they tried to liberate themselves from, whilst at the same time understanding that they themselves are going to have to play a game against the people who are just as underdeveloped and as rabid and as angry as they are. And really the last 30 years of conflict that we've seen in Africa, the Middle East, and in parts of Eastern Europe are all parts of this. That rivalry is expanded on a global level. That's the name of the game.
From Congo to Somalia to Sarajevo, it's pretty much, you're like crash coursing, you're speed running these people into a global system that they're not ready to handle. And it's just, no, because that's the thing though, because, okay, the first line here about, where did you say it? Forces of enemy which have a constant totalitarian authority, where is it? Hopelessness and aggressive disenchantment. So here he has field of tension, area conflict between the unavoidability of the objective and the impossibility of its realization. Imponderable or even explosive reactions could be given vent. Meaning that the unavoidable goal of being integrated into the planetary politics, the mass democratic society on the global scale. That cannot be avoided unless you're willing to be like Bhutan, where you have more or less a functioning monarchy and a royal family, and basically or like Tibet, where you're sort of like not an economically developed theocratic state. Unless you're willing to like hard and fast cling to your traditional powers, which Kondylis will talk about later on in the book. Unless you're willing to do that, the goal of global integration is basically unavoidable. But it's psychoanalytic in a way. It's like what Lacan would call the petit object ah. The real goal is not the real goal. It's just the subterfuge for the real goal. That sort of cathetic inner drive towards satiation. That is impossible. That becomes impossible. So you give people an unavoidable goal that also happens to be unrealizable. And so, like, this is how politics has been done since the collapse of the Berlin Wall. So that's basically what the world that Kondylis is describing is our world as well.
Yeah.
Do you think the Ukrainians are going to like join NATO and become a glorious Western power? Oh, but also Azov is going to run the place, and they're also going to have their traditions, and they're also going to like worship the Bandera. And it's like, no, it's not going to happen. It's not. No, I'm sorry. You think the Congo is going to be like that when you have like one dictator after another? Or do you think like you think you're going to give Taiwan their glorious independence on the global stage, that they're going to rival China as an economic superpower? No, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, it's not. And global liberalism gives you that little bit of hope that you're going to be like a rootless Westerner. You're going to drink Coca-Cola and watch The Office or whatever, and you're going to, It's just, it's a total farce. It's a total farce. And Kondylis was one of the very few realists to come along and say this is an accurate portrayal of what power politics in the mass democratic liberal age actually looks like. Not an older form of oligarchic classical liberalism, like the one that Teddy Roosevelt, that's cast as like racist or whatever nowadays, or Eurocentric. It's actually this newer permutation of liberalism that is essentially this like total corrosive force throughout the globe. And it only gives people this like Disneyland nationalism, to quote a term from Constantine in the War Report, this like weirdo Gladio Disneyland nationalism, where if you fight the remaining enemies of the regime, then you too are going to get the strip mall. Just like in America. Just like I don't know, what do they watch? You know, whatever. Like whatever media is, they're gonna be just like a Marvel movie. It's you know, like one day there will be a African Tony Stark. You know what I mean? Like that's what they think. But the reality
well, that's what they want, you know, like, oh, you're just like us.
But that goal is by definition, it's definitionally impossible, according to Kondylis. So you have something that's both inevitable but also impossible. No wonder there's not any more G-word-ides throughout the world. I mean, no wonder you're going to have large-scale wars with drones and ethnic cleansing and rival powers that have their own forms of Disneyland nationalism that will never go anywhere. Yeah, exactly. Wakanda forever, Bandera forever, Shanghai Czech forever. It's never going to happen. It's just like, whoo! It's crazy. Man, that was great. It's really, when you read Kondylis, so you really understand everything. It's true. He's a hidden gem.
I mean, but, again, very grateful for the people who've translated him.
Yeah.
Because we would not have this goodness without them.
Is that true that a Kenyan politician said that we want to be like Wakanda?
Please be true.
I'm a G-word idle acceleration. I want to fight everything.
Young man nationalism.
Yeah. Billions. No, but what's funny is that I think the goal of Trump is that, or the goal of any like explicit like right-wing politics on the global stage, and it comes up in the book Reactionary Moderns, is that like it's a form of like overthrowing that system to say to the rest of the world, no, actually that goal is impossible, and that there is a clear delineation between us and you. And equality is baked into the system as opposed to being this like tragic after effect of our lack of wholesome Chungus moralism. Like it's a way of a total iconoclasm, a way of shedding off the pretensions of mass democratic egalitarian politics that has created what a lot of people would call transnational progressivism. That goal is impossible.
Yeah.
And it's rather a recognition on a global stage that power politics operates fundamentally differently than what we think, or rather what we say is going to operate as. And I think that's really the goal of any like explicitly rightist politics in terms of geopolitics. It's rather just like what the Chinese would have called, what the Confucians would have called the rectification of names, to actually properly name things as something that's attainable as opposed to not attainable, as opposed to an ideal that can never be realized. And that people have to delete their cultures and erase their histories in order to buy into this system that by definition will never be achieved. So, you could probably create something if you took all 1,000 Africans with IQ 130 IQ and put them into one city. Well,
so it's almost like the typewriters and typewriters and the works of Shakespeare. You finish the rest of that. That metaphor.
No, it could be like Angola, where you create this like mixed race managerial state.
Yeah.
But that's terribly racist. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, you can't say those things. That's awful.
Yeah. No. But Big Ben, what he means by definition is that given the actual geopolitical, cultural, and sociopolitical realities of these different nations throughout the globe, you're never going to like truly turn everyone into a Western democracy. That's not going to happen. So, but that's what I mean. Like, it's a reiteration of colonialism at the end of the day. It's colonialism by another means.
Yeah.
Is that true? Adam Kissinger shot a reporter today?
Yes, he did.
What?
Not Kissinger. Kissinger, sorry. Not him, but the guy campaigning against Josh Hawley. There's a photo of it. He shot him in the arm.
Why did he shoot a guy in the arm? He's a Democrat? Or
I think they were on a hunting trip or just some shootout just to prove a point, and he shot a guy in the arm.
Oh, it's by accident. It was like a Dick Cheney type.
Yeah, well, we don't know about Dick Cheney, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember when Dick Cheney shot his friend in the face with a bird shot?
Yeah, yes.
Do people still remember that?
There are some people who listen to us who were born after that happened.
That's true. Yeah. What year was that? 2005? I
want to say 2006, 7.
Yeah, he like shot the guy in the face, but it was just a bird shot though. It was from a distance, so it wasn't that, it wasn't like.
I remember the joke being like, "Damn, Dick, you shot the one lawyer who likes me."
Yeah, I think he was a lawyer for.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Yeah,
I think White House counsel, if I remember correctly.
Dick Cheney's birdshot compassionate conservatism.
Hey, man, listen, if you're not on board with this, doing No Child Left Behind for 6 million illegals, then you're going to get buckshot to the face.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
What are the lovely people...
Did you see that Liz Cheney was doing something recently?
Yes, she was there in like a weird country over party meeting with Kamala Harris, and according to Stephen Miller, she's being vetted for like some job in her potential transition team.
Oh God!
So I think that it's World War III if Kamala wins.
Yeah,
because they will finally have the perfect golem to implement their plans.
The perfect female golem to like really, yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, the vassal state, exactly. The vassal state lives in the era preceding the one of its master. Exactly. These vassal states, they're trying to like speed run, like really Western democratic relations.
If we too, have 1,000 years of eating McDonald's hamburgers, we too will become white and blonde haired.
That really is like the Hyperborean mystery of Eleusis, the Philosopher's Stone is McDonald's. Eat enough McDonald's and your skin. It'll be like in Theravada Buddhism, they have accounts where like when you achieve harmony with 10,000 Buddha lands, when you achieve liberation, there's different
you become white.
Yeah, your skin whitens, your hair gets longer and better and shinier.
You get A10s.
Your fingernails. Yeah, you get A10s. Your fingernails grow. Like it literally is like a bodily transformation when you achieve moksha. And there is like, I think Nagarjuna talks about this. I'm not joking, by the way. They actually say this. These are actual Buddhist texts, and I believe it was either in the Mahayana. I think it was Mahayana, because if Nagarjuna was talking about it, it's in the Mahayana tradition. But yeah, so exactly, if you achieve liberation, if you achieve Buddhahood, then you too will grow A10s, and your skin will lighten, and your hair will become shiny. And I'm not joking. This is actually true. If you look it up, I mean, I remember reading this in my grad courses on Buddhism. It was like I was looking around the room like, do you guys get what they mean? They mean becoming white people. Like it's
you will return to the Aryan that conquered this land, who said namaste on his chariot.
Yeah. And you have like the spinning symbol of peace, and like one of those like old school Biggie Slonk edits, So true. This is like the Robert Seffert bill. Yeah, incredible, Gio, incredible. Yeah. Oh my God. Anyways, this has been great.
We'll probably read more of this next week.
We'll read more of this next week. Yeah, if there's more happenings that go on.
We'll do what we usually do. We'll read and then we'll cover an article.
Yeah. So please sneed those super chats. I prefer if you go to the entropy link in the comments. Entropy.com.
Give this man your money.
Yeah, /Giant Productions. For those listening on X, Twitter, it's entropy.com/Giant Productions. Sneed those super chats. But if you want to use the YouTube, then that's good.
No
Kino stream as always. Thank you. Yeah, no judgment. Before Enlightenment, eat McDonald's and reenact the whale. After Enlightenment, eat McDonald's and reenact the whale. Exactly. There was a guy that lost weight because
is that the gay fat Brendan Fraser movie?
Yes.
He's referring to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a guy that lost weight because his buddies kept comparing him to the whale. There was like
whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works.
We are pro weight loss. We are pro health here.
Yeah.
Minus the occasional bit of candy that I call tobacco.
Yeah. But I don't know. When it comes to chicks, though, I kind of like meat on the bone,
We know.
Kind of Renault pill. Anyways, I don't know. Like Renault has like stopped finding photos of like curvaceous women. Now he's like using AI to create celebrities that are curvaceous. Like I saw this one he posted of Sydney Sweeney with like this huge dump truck and this huge rack, and it's like, I don't know. Renault has to go back to finding like we
must return to real girls.
He must return to finding score group women. I can't believe I said that in here. Like, I can't believe people now know that I know about score group. Like, it's I can't believe it. Abby Winters. Remember when JJ the Jackoff plane, he enlightened the E-Right on Abby Winters' girls?
Yes.
Yeah. I was in that group chat.
We're both in that group chat.
Yeah, do not research score group. Do not research.
Do not research.
I shouldn't say it. For like homely women, Abby Winters, some of them are pretty good.
In terms of the build?
Yeah, they're like, but anyways, Score Group was founded in the mid-90s? Holy crap. Whoa!
Don't ask me why I know that.
That's an interesting thing. Oh, it started off as a magazine in the mid-90s.
Yes. It was like a zine.
Yeah. XL Women. Voluptuous XL magazine. Oh my god. Anyways, let's go to the super chats. I'm sure you're all itching to go to the Fiddler's Green stream. So apparently the Maple Leafs lost 6-2. Well, at least they got 2. I guess that was punishment for owning the Tampa Bay Lightnings yesterday. Anyways,
as if Florida hasn't been hammered enough.
Yeah, I know. But anyways, how do I say that name? Is that a Link anime profile picture?
Is it a
Troya
YouTube one or a
manga.
super chat?
YouTube. Let's go to Entropy first. So an Entropy Seneca for $5. Our good friend Seneca, Missouri lore.
Let's go.
Speaking of score group, Bald Knobbers. What a name, Bald Knobbers. Knobbers. Pro-Union guerrilla during the Civil War, operating in the Ozarks and known for their distinct hoods. Formed to prevent corruption, quote unquote, in government and protect their neighbors from gangs, but quickly turned to barbarity and terrorism, like all militia groups. Kind of like, that reminds me of the Simpsons episode where like Homer forms the vigilante group. That was very funny. Heavy sack beatings went up a staggering 800%. But thank you, Seneca, for the Missouri lore. The Bald Knobbers, one of the first militia vigilante groups in Missouri. Is the Ozarks just in Missouri, or the Ozarks span across states?
No, they span across various states.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And Sam153 for $15. Spooky Sneed Month. Any digital archipelago plans for election day? Joining a different stream? I'm not American. You're probably going to go to the Old Glory Club stream.
Yeah, I'll probably be on the OGC stream after work.
It's on Tuesday, is it not?
Yes, it's Tuesday is election day.
So, Can we do Digital Archipelago on Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, we should do the Wednesday, like, post-election. Well, it won't even be post-election because it's America now, and I live in a third world banana republic where I'm not going to know the results of the election until, later, which is stupid. But yes, I think Wednesday will be Digital Archipelago post-election coverage.
We'll do it Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll do it
And next
Wednesday.
week we'll have to do a Halloween-themed one.
Oh, yeah, because it's, the 30th?
Yeah. No,
okay.
It's before the 30th, but like...
Well, no, I know. Hold on. What is next week? I gotta mention, Oh, okay. Yeah, it'll be the 29th. Yeah, that's fine. We can do something spooky.
Yeah, we'll do something. Yeah, we'll do it.
I'll use my Steam StreamYards to get a spooky background going.
Oh, yeah. And Not Omegon for $5. Good morning from the land of the rising sun. Oh my God, we have a Japanese listener. Holy crap!
We have Polish listeners. I'm not surprised we have at least one Japanese guy.
I can't believe we have Polish listeners after I keep zigzag posting. That's dedication to the Digital Archipelago. Like setting aside your own ethnic hatred of Russians to watch this show. Oh man, that's crazy. Thank you, Not Omegon. And we all love our Polish and Japanese listeners. If you can get us, listen, if you can hook more Japanese true cells to this podcast, I would much appreciate.
We will give you money if you start translating our work.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Like the guy who does the Lotus Eaters translations for Japanese.
Oh my God. Shitty Hone. Anyways, Owen Zaleski for $3. Hello, gents. Hope you're doing well. Just doing drawing using some Noodlers Inc. What kind of candy do you guys like? I fully endorse Noodlers, run by a based Ron Paul Boomer, Nathan Tarda, if he makes it all by hand. If you want good drawing or fountain pen ink, I highly recommend Noodlers Inc. What kind of candy do you guys like during Halloween? I loved it when I got Milk Duds. Praying for you both, OZ.
I like
any,
Milk Duds. Not gonna lie, those are great.
yeah, I like anything chocolate, like especially like the candy, the chocolate box that has like the like Twix and what's it got, like mini Twix, Milky Way, and what's it called? What's the peanut one?
Reese's?
No. I think it has Reese's.
Snickers.
Snickers, yeah. Then there's like the cheap one that's got like Smarties and Kit Kat and Aero, which I mean, it's all right. Like I like Kit Kat and Aero. It's just
yeah, those are pretty good. I like the 100 grand bars. Those are pretty good. I like most things chocolate. I have a bad sweet tooth as it is, but I really like Sprees. I don't know if you know what those are. Those are like a little hard candy that
Sprees.
Yeah.
I think I've seen them.
They're pretty good. I like
Sprees. Well, I like sometimes you get homemade stuff too, but then that's impossible nowadays.
Oh man, the best homemade things that I've had recently are like flavored, like fruit flavored marshmallows made from scratch, like with the whole gelatin and sugar thing. The lady who made them, actually, she's a listener to this show. So, hi, Whitney. Shout out to you for your wonderful cooking skills. Those are some of the best desserts I've ever had. So yeah, homemade stuff is fantastic. I like doing desserts homemade. I do a lot of baking and cakes and sweets. So it's always nice to appreciate good handiwork when it's out there.
Do they still give out homemade stuff in America? Because in Canada,
some people do. Some people do.
Oh, what if there's razors in it? Like, that's the big myth.
Well, that's why you be a responsible parent and you don't go trick-or-treating past Martin Luther King Boulevard.
That was like, do you remember last year? What group was that? Where I think it was like the Goyim Defense League. They were like giving out like URL codes to the
to Europa, the last battle.
Yeah.
I remember.
God. Not even like a RIP TV, just like the URL code.
Just a QR code.
The QR code,
so you can go watch Europa, the last battle.
That's insane. That's like, why would you? I'm gonna hand out QR codes to the Digital Archipelago playlist. I'm gonna hand those out to children. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. In case any Fed is listening, I'm not gonna propagandize children by handing out QR codes. Yeah, even though they do it, but
they train out their children. But yeah, I guess not.
There was one teacher. I think it was probably just a joke though. But like, you never know with Chaya Ratchik. She doesn't really care if you're joking.
Oh no, she's like time to make sure that this man never has a job again.
Time to ruin this chick's life. There was some woman saying like she was gonna give out HRT to her students, but like, okay, if that's real, then that person should never have a job ever again. But if like, even if it's a joke, it's appalling. But like,
no, I'm kind of okay. I will say this: as much as I don't like Chaya Ratchik or whatever, I am kind of I don't mind endorsing, cancellation tactics on my enemies. Sorry, like if some libtard gets fired, it's kind of like the least I can do
over a joke.
Yeah.
Well, what about Douglas Mackey is going to prison over a joke? So
yeah, like my enemies can go. Yeah, I'm not hurting over the fact that that's the way it is. Sorry.
No, but like, even like joking about actualizing children in any way, it's disgusting. It's not like, even like a heterosexual teacher was like, oh, that boy is really attractive. Like, even that is like, that's too, that person.
So beyond the pale.
Yeah. Like it's not just because they're like LGBT or whatever. It's just that like any form of like actualizing minors is disgusting, and you shouldn't be a teacher. Like, that's correct. Like, I know I'm saying like, here's a very boring and obvious non-offensive political position, but it's true. It's not.
It bears repeating in current year, which is so sad.
That's why, like, when people joke about like, oh, I wish I had those teachers when I was a kid, it's like, would
you?
Yeah, it's
Yeah. I wish I had that teacher when I was a kid. I'm like, I don't think you would. When I was
15, I wish I had a hot teacher that molested me. Like, it's just
I think people say that, but not maybe realize Maybe you
the
don't.
actual, yeah. No, because they don't realize like the actual that like because I think people can't conceptualize that boys can also be exploited as well. You know what I mean? They don't really conceptualize the actual dynamic. So it's just like it's something that's stupid, like bro. You know what I mean? Like it's too it's a too meat-headed of a thing. Like it's just if like listen, if you're actually on the far right, if you're a sensitive young man, you would be against that sort of thing of like a teacher exploiting a sensitive young man. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the real right-wing position. Not this like bro manosphere. Oh, I wish I had that teacher when I was a kid. Like that's not a real, that's not, Anyways. And finally the entropy links. And he really didn't have to do that because I quite enjoyed reviewing Canonical for Leibowitz. But you know what I'm going to say, Prude.
Yeah.
Charlie Mackey for $100 US. Excellent video on Canonical for Leibowitz. Hopefully some schizos that hadn't read it before will now. Now I got to think of something new to fund. Once I make a Patreon account, you'll have a new subscriber. Or is it a different platform better? No, either Patreon or Substack. But thank you from the bottom of my heart, Charlie Mackey. I quite enjoyed doing 4 hours on a Canonical for Leibowitz. I felt it deserved a very thorough exploration instead of like breaking it up into different parts. I felt that it was just better to do like one mega video. So thank you. Thank you, Charlie Mackey. And hopefully you give Prude the same love. I think is Charlie Mackey that told you to review Cruelty Squad?
Yeah, video game, which has been a pain in the butt to put my thoughts down into paper. But I'm going to have it out by the end of the month. So it's there. I have video footage. I have recording. We're good.
And finally for you, I didn't see this, or else I would have put it before the $100. Spooky Joe Stalin for $3. Gio, did you show Prude that Spooky X video? I sent you a DM, Prude. There was a comment in the last video offering to do a copy-free intro song, or maybe you could use the song I sent you all for episode 107. Did you see it? I think he tagged us both on the Spooky.
Oh, yeah. I need to...
That was pretty good. He used like some AI in it.
Yeah, which threw me off for a second. But yeah, it was all right. It was good. Wouldn't be down to... I would. We can try it out, but I'm gonna talk to Penultimo first because he put all that effort in. I know he owns the license. I got to figure it out. But anytime that someone wants to make something like that for the show, it will get used. Like we did your other one for episode 100. So like it's we like it when the fans do these things.
Yeah, and we also like it'd be great if we had like a dedicated fan that could be like a clip channel. Yeah, because like okay on YouTube, you can clip moments that I will then turn into YouTube shorts. Now I'm starting to do more YouTube shorts, but if you guys can clip your favorite moments from DA for both me and Prude's channel, then me and Prude will definitely pump out the shorts from the streams.
Absolutely.
Yes. Also, if you like wanted to start a clip channel, we won't DMCA you. I mean, this is all public. We're not going to be like, other people that dox and harass and DMCA their clip channels like a certain rage pig. We won't do that. We promise. If you want to start a digital archipelago or like a Prude and Gio clip channel, I don't know, Prude, if you wanted like if you wanted to don't clip our paywalled content, of course, but you're free to clip the public content, either of Content Minded or of Prude's various series like Meme Review, Prudent Observations, or like, even genre reviews. Like if you want to do the public content, if you want to be a clipper, then either on like Twitter or even TikTok. Can you imagine if we had a TikTok clipper? That would be great,
actually.
Yeah.
If you're a dedicated fan, we will, and you tell us that you have a TikTok channel, we will be happy as hell because that's a medium that Gio and I are not really on.
Yeah. Like if you want to clip us, if you want to be a dedicated YouTube or TikTok clip channel, then we won't DMCA you as long as you keep to the public content. We're happy with that. We're not going to be like a certain rage pig and DMCA you and take you down.
We would encourage anything that helps promote the content.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, of course, paywall content is just...
Well, that's different, but yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
Speaking of paywall content, I'm going to be doing this month's meme or discourse corner with Volpez this Friday.
Oh, nice.
We're going to talk about his article about, thinking Dutch, speaking English, and how, some of our favorite posters are non-American or non-English speaking natives.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a good one. I think it'll be a little more in depth than the first two episodes that were a little more meme heavy. But because for instance, one of my favorite Substacker and Twitter posters is Egg Report. Yeah. And I know he's not American. But he's still one of the most insightful writers and people I've ever met, and I can't praise him enough for how I enjoy his work. So
Randy isn't American?
I'm pretty sure he's not.
He knows so much about American culture, though.
Well, but there's some tweets that he's made and some posts that he's written where I'm like, where he makes it sound like that he's not an American, or maybe he's an expat. But I could be wrong, but I don't think he is. Or I've never gotten the impression that he is. Yeah,
but speaking of expats, so now we have another $3 from Owen Zaleski. Not Omegon is American. He's not Japanese. He's just in Japan for a business trip. Don't get confused. Also for Halloween, check out some horror stories like The Ash Tree by M.R. James. God bless. The Ash Tree. I've never heard of that.
I don't either. But if you want to send us a link, by all means, we'll check it out.
Yeah. So okay, now we're going to the YouTube super chats. So here by Troya Monga, Troya Monga.
You can put them on screen.
Object-oriented ontology, or is that 3 zeros or OOO, like object-oriented ontology?
I'm pretty sure it's just 3 zeros.
Oh, 3 zeros. Okay. Troya Monga for $9.99. I work at a place a lot of truckers drive to. Drivers come to. I saw a ton of Canadians today. Must have been Italian because they were very swarthy. Don't know why Italians would wear head wraps, though.
Oh,
my God.
Indians.
Well, it's funny because Sikhs have taken over Canadian trucking. That's why when I drive in America to see my GF, I know that I can... It's surprising how many white truckers are left in America.
It's still a pretty white business in America. Still,
yeah.
They're the only ones who want the jobs. There's a lot of Mexicans who do it though too.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mexican truck drivers. Yeah, but in Canada, the Sikhs are basically cornering the market on truck drivers. There's still a lot of working class white guys that will do it. Even white women will do it, but there's a lot of Sikhs. Sikhs, they love trucking for some reason. Anyways, $20 by our good friend King Salmonfish, who's returned. He has new psyops. Apparently, he claims he orchestrated the Tim Pool cancellation or letting go. Congrats on primetime hegemony, lads. Tim is Patreon begging, accruing debt to pay debt. It doesn't count. Cost outstrip productivity. And entropy makes continuing long physically improbable. Just paying for the $20. So Tim Pool is in the hole, apparently.
You could say that the pool's closed.
You tweeted that, you bastard. The pool is closed. Oh, my God.
What a tragedy. So sad.
What a tragedy. So, yeah. But thank you, King Salmonfish. $5 again by King Salmonfish. $5. Money to acknowledge I exist. My little joke, the irony, if you know, you know. Well, I read your tweets, King Salmonfish. It's just that he really he'll go through he'll at people obsessively. It's kind of people don't know how to handle the power of King Salmonfish on Twitter. I hate to say it, but anyways, he remains a good friend of the show. And speaking of good friends of the show, Hugo Glees 556 for Mexican peso. Speaking of Mexicans, $20 Mexican, which I believe is what, $3 Canadian?
Probably.
Yeah. Ron Paul, racist gynecology practice griper. No, but see, the he wasn't racist when he was a gynecologist, though. He like helped a lot of like these poorer black couples. So yeah, he wasn't racist. But his newsletter was racist. So I don't know. It wasn't that racist.
It was good for what it was.
Yeah. Ron Paul racist gynecology practice Groiper. That's I don't want to read into any implications though. That sounds pretty. That's too much.
I'll let that go.
Anyways, thank you, Hugo Glitz. Green Glassful, another good friend of the show, for $2. Gotta live the bug, Gio. A credit to his race. Gotta love the bug or live the bug?
Love the bug? I don't know. And which
live
bug
like
are we talking about?
Man?
Bug?
Like live as a bug man?
Bug man? Mold bug man? Who knows?
Mencius Mold Bug Man. RIP to a legend account.
Yeah, it's so true.
Anyways. And our good friend Seasider for $5. Thanks to both of you for the book recommendation. Chemical for Leibowitz was a wonderful read. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's
a great book.
Yeah, I said people to read it for themselves. So, thank you, Seasider. And our good friend GSP from the War Report. Go to Constantine Martelli's channel and go listen to the latest War Report. They cover all major geopolitical news. I quite like the recent episode. They go into the implications of Trump winning or losing. So GSP for $6.99 Canadian for salute for another cozy, edifying stream, gents. God bless. Thank you, GSP. And let's go to the entropy. Nobody there. This has been a hell of a night.
Sure has.
Yeah. I'm still pissed off. Yeah, exactly. How about Toronto? How Gio has a Toronto Maple Leafs and Pruda's Dallas Stars Halloween costume? Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's funny. I'm going to a Halloween kind of thing this Friday, and it's not really a Halloween thing. It's more of a Shakespeare style deal. For the first time since I was like a kid, I bought a costume.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to enjoy the Halloween festivities, I suppose, this year. Why not? I'm not really big on the holiday, but I think just for grins, I think I will this year.
Yeah, I went to like one Halloween costume party, and anyways, I think I talked about it on the show before. Can I put that up? Fast saw a goose around seek no relief. What?
Oh man.
No, there's some good Sikhs. I'm friends with some Sikhs. It's just that, like the Khalistani thing and the like Trudeau shredding relations with Modi in India. It's just like no.
Is India slowly turning into your guys' like Israel?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes. It's yes, almost exactly. But it's funny because I think like both sides support Israel, so.
Well, yeah, for obvious reasons.
No, but like Khalistan is basically like Modi's Gaza Strip. Like it's, but you know what's funny is that like in India, the Sikhs that are left in India, they really don't care about the Khalistani thing, from what I heard. It's not a big thing to them because basically like the Indians, the Hindus, they just basically imported all of their Khalistani separatists to Canada. So I guess Khalistan.
So, well, if you got to get rid of a foreign threat problem, then you just import them to a different country that's open to immigration.
Yeah, funny how that works, eh?
Yeah, crazy.
And now that Trudeau's calling it out, he's like sacrificing all relations with India. Like, I don't know. This guy's got to go, man. He's got to be out of power. Did you know he put through that bill where he banned all the sale and possession of handguns? He like froze the sale and distribution of handguns.
Well, I hope you own some.
Well, I unfortunately don't. I only own. Anyways, I'm not going to say what I own.
Yeah, don't.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just you'll get married to your nice American lady, and you'll become a citizen, and you can.
I've done some hunting in my time, yeah.
Well, I was just thinking you can own a handgun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
As is your God-given right.
As an American, your God-given right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the
Indian
God-given
TFR is
right of
below
every quirked-up
replacement?
white boy to own a handgun.
That can't happen. Is that true? India's below replacement?
Are they? Let's go find out. What is the latest TFR? India,
Gio, don't be an illegal like I
TFR.
hypocrite. No, I don't think I hypocrite's an illegal. I think.
Oh no, they are. They're at No, it says it's a 2. No, they're still at 2.1. They're still at replacement. It is down from 2021.
Oh yeah.
But no, they're still at above replacement. I'm sure that it depends on the region, but
it depends on the region.
The UN says they're still above replacement. But they haven't done any interesting census work. They were supposed to do one in 21 that got curtailed due to COVID, and now they haven't done any census stuff since 2011. So it'll be interesting to see when they finally do that, what their population stats are like.
It's kind of, they say it's kind of impossible to get like 100% accurate census.
Oh, I'm sure, but I mean, you can get a pretty good picture.
Yeah, you can. But I mean, like, there's a lot of people in India that don't have birth records, for instance.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, but
they have other means of like going to towns and yeah. There was that guy, like I remember Bap said he knew this like schizo like sexpat that had this theory that like Africa is actually way less populated than people believe because a lot of like census people would just go to like town villages and like go to the main square and just like head count people. And he had this theory that like Africa is actually not overpopulated. I don't know if it's true. I think he used to be on Celiforms. I think, what was his name? Limit? I think the guy's name was Limit. And he said like Africa is actually not that populated. I don't know. That's kind of crazy.
It's an interesting take. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah. Gio, what were the good schizo guys? No, listen, the good schizo guys you mentioned earlier, good schizoetic guys. I mentioned Biggie Slonk, Nuke Telly, and Panther Den. Those are the classics. Those are the OG, the greats. We stand atop the shoulders of giants.
We truly do.
I think Biggie Slonk's still posting like a small account, though. I think he still posts.
I think so. There's still a lot of great posters today. Like it's insanely good. Yeah. How amazing!
Yeah, Bolnost is one of them. Yeah,
he's one of. I mean, even Peter Rex has made some really great edits.
Yeah, Distro. Yeah,
Distro is one of them. There's a lot of great edits. There's
my
favorite
edit from Volnost. We shouldn't even be mentioning these guys, but like my favorite.
We really shouldn't.
We shouldn't. My favorite one was that one schizo woman on Twitter. We're not going to name her name. Where he like the way her angelic voice was cracking in the Volnost edit, where she's like, "You don't spin the thing."
Yeah,
it was so funny. Oh my god.
Remember, there's a short story written about you and her.
Oh my god. But yeah, there are a lot of great Hyperborean editors. There's a lot of great like okay, even the ones that aren't like explicitly racist. There's like a lot of like Trump ones who aren't like, you know, racist, socialistic.
Listen to what we're talking about and know that how could we ever sell out? Who would ever want to buy this show or us after we've just spent the last 10 minutes talking about the OG
Nuke Telly,
Nuke Telly, you know, edits. Like, I think we're okay. I think we're safe from getting bought out.
I don't know if I should mention this, but
I think you'll be okay.
If you go to Patreon and my Substack, if you go to the paywall, there may or may not be a 3-hour interview with Nuke Telly. I'm just going to put it that way. There may or may not be a 3-hour interview with Nuke Telly. Way back in like a few years ago, almost.
Years
ago. But I couldn't release it, though. I couldn't release it because you know why, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Those reasons are well known.
Yeah. So, it may or may not be in the paywall, behind the paywall. A 3-hour interview with Nuke Telly may or may not be there. All I'm just going to say, if you want to, you know, it's only $5 a month to find out. So, and I'm such a terrible grifter. I feel bad, man. I said I closed an art sale today. That's why I'm on my grift mode. And so, anyways, we'll be back on Prude's channel And like I said, I put out a new Cole report that's also behind the paywall. I talk about a bunch of great stuff. I'm going to release the teaser video tomorrow on YouTube. I will release a Content Minded this week, either a solo or with a guest. And Prude does a bunch of stuff. And next week we'll be back on Prude's channel. We'll do a spooky Halloween edition of Digital Archipelago. But
Yes.
what do you have?
Yeah, so no, we just finished our series on spinal catastrophism. Dimes and I streamed that last night. So we're really happy that how that turned out. I think it's one of the definitive sort of book reviews. So if you're wanting to know some more of this like CCRU inspired plutonics and history sort of stuff, then there you go. He and I are also going to start doing this every month with a new text. And we want to have guests that are kind of like aware of the work. So Gio will come on when we talk about Anti-Oedipus next month. Later this week, hopefully this week or next week, depending on when I get the chance to do some editing. I will also have, we'll return the Stalin's War series. And then I've got an essay coming in that is right before my hot take of the election before the election itself takes place on November 5th. So I've got a lot of stuff.
Only
in
2
the works
weeks
for
away.
writing. I know, we are 2 weeks away until the election, so I've got deadlines to meet. But it is insane to know how far things have come along. But again, this is where we're at. If you're an American, do your duty. Get that crazy bitch away from the White House.
No!
But yeah, no, I've got a lot going on, and if you want more schizo shit, there's a lovely playlist on Oren's channel of us covering Nick Land's Meltdown, and it's fun to listen to Oren's struggle to read.
Yeah, I
say that with love, but it is true.
Oh, by the way, pretty soon, if I get it done, I will be. There will be I'm typing it out, a written interview thing with Rachel Haywire's Substack.
Ooh.
The futurist thing. She asked me about my artwork and stuff, so it's really great. I might be doing some more collab. I can't say anything right now, but I will be probably in the future doing a lot more collaborations with Rachel Haywire. So, and Robert Weisenfeld for $1.99 compromised. Oh my God. Let's look up. Should we look up what? What does that mean?
It just means that a very Jewish guy just gave you money.
Is Weisenfeld?
That's a very Jewish last name. Good sir.
Yeah, it's a very Jewish last name. Oh my God, Weisenfeld. Well, thank you. Hey, $1.99. That's it. We have the best fans. What a fucking comped. Exactly, comped. There you go. Thank you, Fast Saga. That, you know what that comes from? It's an old poker thing, but I remember Rick from Romus Burning always used to say comp. Do you remember Romus Burning, guys?
I do.
Do you remember the Romus Burning? I love how Robert, as soon as I mention something that could get me into heat with the gripers, he fucking gives me a super chat right there. Like, you people. Listen, I have nothing. Okay, I have nothing against the gripers. I have nothing. It's just that at the time, I was talking with Nuke Tully, and I try to remain as objective from internet drama as possible. I have friends who are gripers as well, so I'm not. Yeah, but I just found it funny the timing of that super chat. Like, we have the best fans, folks. We have the best fans. But yeah, Rick from Rome is Burning, he really tried to meme the comp thing. It was very funny in group chats. Where can I find Warren's channel? Which Warren? Warren from Tech Wars? Warren Baylog? Is there another Warren? We know?
I don't know.
Well, Warren Baylog does a show with Stryker, but he also does a show with his wife, Emily Yukis, called Something Politics. Some of my closest friends are gripers. That's funny.
I even have black
friends.
friends.
It's true. I have friends who are gripers. I'm not joking. I know it's a joke. But like, I actually do have friends who are gripers. But anyways, this has been another great show. The Kondylis, you have to realize Kondylis' writing is very dense in terms of his alliteration, but the concepts are phenomenal. And we will probably go back to reading from this book in the future. So I hope Kondylis Groyper actually has been listening. So I promise, I think he came back to X. I promise Kondylis Groyper an episode of Content Minded, and hopefully I will DM him again to get him on the show. So, or maybe even DA, we can get Kondylis Groyper on.
Yeah, why not have another reading episode and bring him on? I'm all for that. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'll DM him. So thank you all. You guys have been very generous and very kind. I was very upset by the trouncing of the Maple Leafs by the Outlaw Mud Show, Columbus Blue Jack. I shouldn't say that. I quite like. I've been to Ohio a few times. I quite like people from Ohio. I shouldn't say that. It's just, in terms of hockey. Ohio mentioned, yeah. In terms of hockey, they're kind of like an Outlaw Mud Show team. But by the way, I can't leave until I mention this, Prude. Speaking of Outlaw Mud Show, you know where that term comes from? It comes from wrestling. It comes from wrestling, the competing outlaw promotions that would literally do it in dirt arenas, right? In parking lots. But the term was popularized by Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette, the boomer lib, eternally BTFO'd, because guess who went on the Undertaker's podcast? Donald J. Trump. Undertaker and Kane interviewing the Brothers of Destruction have aligned forces with Donald Trump. Literally my childhood. My childhood. I just had to mention that. Jim Cornette has been molding, seething, dilating, pounding sand, losing hope on the TL, and on his stupid podcast he does with Brian Last. I'm drinking the Cornette boomer liberal tears. So God bless Kane. God bless the Undertaker. God bless Donald J. Trump. So I just had to mention that. I was going to explode until I mentioned that.
I'm glad that you did.
Anyways, we'll see you next week. So thank you. As I always say, God bless, goodbye. Go to both Prude, Subscribe Star, and my Patreon. God bless, goodbye. Too sweet.
See you, gents.